Hello my dear friends, this is your friend Dark Fox 3.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto's training trip unlocked the ultimate harem with Fu? Part 3. And now let's start the fanfic. Camp in the Land of Fire, a few miles away from Konoha, Naruto began to stir from slumber. As he awakened, the first thing he noticed was the warmth of another body next to him. Lying on his side, the blonde opened his eyes and smiled as he was greeted by the face his girlfriend, still sleeping peacefully at his side with some of her green hair draped over her features. The two began sleeping together 1 month into their training with their fourth tails. Whenever they went that far during their training, they would be forced to enter their version 2 forms and it would damage their bodies to the point their skin would burn off and it would leave them drained and sore. They slept together to comfort each other after this harsh training and found that they'd never had a more restful and pleasant slumber than when they had the other by their side. Mastery meant they could enter the four-tailed state and not uncontrollably enter version 2 of their chakra cloaks. Using the version 1 form was fine, they could call and dismiss the chakra with little repercussions. Version 2 however was still very damaging and taxing to use, but it wasn't as bad and though inadvisable they would still be able to fight fairly well afterwards. Their five-tailed states were still uncontrollable and they would still automatically enter version 2 if they went that far. Over the last 4 months, the two had improved all their skills greatly thanks to their clones. Fu had learned a few earth jutsu to be used in conjunction with lightning jutsu to create fields and barriers. Naruto, after reading up on sensors and keeping in mind what he had learned about sage techniques, particularly their ability to sense others, had come up with a perception jutsu that allowed him to infuse his chakra into the wind. It took him 2 months of focusing 100 clones on it, but he had completed it. The technique, which he named Wind Dragon's Vigilance, allowed him to sense everyone in an 8-kilometer radius, from their location to their chakra levels. By focusing on an individual, he could even sense their movements and read their chakra to the point where he could tell if they were under a genjutsu, or he could focus on himself. Fu had also come up with something fairly unique, though it was actually an incomplete version of another more famous technique. She could channel lightning through her nervous system and enhance her reflexes, reaction times and speed. It took a lot of concentration at the moment and was only possible due to her mastery of lightning thanks to Jiraiya's training with the 5-pronged seal, but she was sure that, with her shadow clones working on it, she would soon complete the technique and using it would become second nature to her. Jiraiya's chakra control training also allowed them to learn and create several techniques that relied on shape manipulation. They had high Jonin to low cage level skill with genjutsu and were experts at sealing, though not masters of the art yet. Speaking of seals, they had also found ways of combining it with their Biju's chakra for some devastating results. The Biju decided to allow it because the results of the combination intrigued them, particularly the effect it had on their enemies. Naruto's skill in space-time jutsu had also improved and by combining it with sealing jutsu, he had created seals that were applied on his and Fu's wrists that stored their swords and allowed them to call the swords to their hands instantly if separated from them, ensuring they couldn't lose them or have the blades used against them. They had also learned the truth about the Rasengan and had made some progress in completing it, though nothing usable had come of it yet. To further increase their experience with real combat and with leadership, they went on a few more bounty missions. One was against a gang of 10 Chunin level missing nin led by a mid-jonin with hostages which net them 34 million. Their performance on that mission also proved to Jiraiya they had learned what it meant to lead missions. Jiraiya had sent a messenger toad ahead to tell Tsunade what they had done and his recommendation, though he left out their skills in case the message was intercepted. While they traveled through the Land of Fire, Jiraiya had decided to travel to the Fire Temple and stay for 2 weeks during the last month. There, the pair met Chiraku, a member of the 12 ninja guardians of the Land of Fire who they both came to respect, and a boy named Sora. The boy was rude, mocked them and generally acted like a jerk, even to the other monks. Naruto and Fu didn't get along with him at first to the point where Naruto got into several fights with him, until they noticed he was this way because he was treated almost the same way they were in their villages by the other monks. The only one who treated him differently was Chiraku. They asked the man why Sora was shunned like that, and he only told them it was something his father did and because of unique powers he had. After this, the two made it a mission to befriend the boy and, although he rejected their attempts at first, they eventually told him of their pasts. After this, he decided to give them a chance and they eventually became friends. It also helped that they could sympathize with the fact that Sora lost his father when he was too young to remember him. He even taught Naruto one of two unique, powerful wind jutsu he created, in exchange for some techniques Naruto knew. The pair of Jinchuriki had also grown closer over this time, though the amount of time they spent training had limited their time together. 2.5 years had passed since Naruto left with Jiraiya. Today was the day for their return to Konoha. Naruto was anxious to see his old home. Fu was excited though there was slight apprehension. There was part of her that was afraid she would be treated like she was back in Taki, despite Naruto's reassurances. Naruto sat up and heard a light moan beside him. Turning his head, he saw Fu's orange eyes looking up at him. Morning already? Fu asked drowsily as she sat up and stretched. Yeah, today's the day we finally get back to Konoha. Ready, Fu? I guess. Fu replied. You're not still worried, are you? Sorry, it's just, after all this time, I don't want to go back to what it was like in Taki. Hey, we talked about this, didn't we? It won't be the same as Taki, because no matter what they think, I'll be with you. Naruto said as he wrapped his arms around his girlfriend, who smiled and returned the hug. Thank you, Naruto, for everything. Hey, you too, Jiraiya said, interrupting the pair. Sorry to interrupt, but it's about time we head out, get ready. You got it, pervy sage. Naruto said as he and Fu got up. Jiraiya sighed. Are you two ever going to stop calling me those names? Only if you stop peeking on women, Arrow-sensei. Fu said with a smirk. TCH, whatever, get yourselves ready. It was a beautiful day in Konoha, the sun shining down on the village as the trio walked through the front gates. Naruto now stood at 5 feet 5 and Fu at 5 feet 4. In addition to the black and orange tracksuit, Naruto now wore a black forehead protector and a red, short-sleeved coat with black flame designs that had been a gift from Jiraiya, and same coat from when he fought Pain. What can I say? I thought it was badass and decided I would make it a permanent part of his outfit. So, this is Konoha. You were right, the Hokage monument's something else. Fu noted as she looked around. To be honest, she liked the look of Taki better, but Konoha still seemed like a nice place to live. You nervous, Fu? A little, it's my first day in my new home. Don't be, everything will be fine. Naruto said as he looked around. I can't believe it's been 2.5 years. The blonde said before jumping up and running up the side of a power pole to the top. He spread his arms wide as he stood on the pole and took in the sight of his home for the first time in almost 3 years. I miss this place. It hasn't changed a bit. Fu smiled as she watched her boyfriend. He sure is excited, isn't he? She asked the sage standing beside her. Hey, tell me about it. Jiraiya replied with a smirk. Just shows how much he loves this village. Fu said. The blonde noticed Tsunade's face on the Hokage monument. So, they added Tsunade's ugly mug to the mountain. He chuckled. You've grown a lot, haven't you, Naruto? A calm voice asked. Naruto, Fu and Jiraiya looked to a nearby building to see Kakashi Hatake sitting on a nearby roof, reading his favorite book as usual. Yo! The silver-haired man waved to his student. Naruto was slightly resentful of him. He had realized how little he had taught him and Sakura over the years, but he was willing to give him a second chance. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, you haven't changed a bit. Naruto said, jumping down to Kakashi's spot. Oh, yeah, hey, I have a present for you. Kakashi looked at him curiously. Sakura, a woman's voice said as she walked into a room. She was the 5th Hokage, Tsunade. Yes, replied a pink-haired teenager, Sakura Haruno, as she turned her head to face her. It seems Naruto's returned, Tsunade said with a smile. What? How? This is. Kakashi said, his visible eye wide and trembling as he held Naruto's present. The newest book of the Ika Ika series, Ika Ika Tactics. Yeah, the latest in the Ika Ika series. Jiraiya gave it to me, but I don't really like that kind of thing, so you can have it. Thank you, Naruto, Kakashi said, holding the book like a holy relic. So, you're Naruto's sensei when he was on Team 7? Fu asked, jumping to the roof herself. That's right, Kakashi said, calming down. You must be Fu, Tsunade told me about you. I look forward to seeing what you and Naruto have learned under Jiraiya. Oh, and welcome to Konoha. You know about, Fu began nervously. Your tenant. Yes, I know. The shinobi were all briefed on it. Thanks to Naruto, most have changed their views on Jinchuriki. You'll be welcomed here, Kakashi assured her, much to her relief. Me? Naruto asked. Of course, after you saved the village from Gaara, everyone started seeing you for the hero you were. I don't think I told you, but I'm proud to be your sensei. Taking on a fully transformed Jinchuriki isn't easy, especially for a genin. Kakashi said with his patented eye smile. But, I couldn't stop Sasuke. Naruto said sadly, a pang of pain in his heart as he remembered his failure to his teammates. Fu took his hand in hers to comfort him, something Kakashi didn't miss. Naruto, Kakashi stood and took a step forward, placing a hand on the blonde's shoulder and making him meet his eyes. Sasuke chose his path. As his friend and comrade, your job was to help him, but you couldn't make his choices for him. You could only try to help him make the right ones. Don't blame yourself for what happened. It wasn't your fault. Thanks, I guess you're right. Naruto said before smiling a bit. In truth, Kakashi's words meant a lot to him, since he always thought he let his team down with his failure. Giving his old sensei a second chance proved to be the right decision. He dropped his smile and looked at the Jonin seriously. Hey, Kakashi sensei. Can you tell me what it was like training under my old man? Naruto asked and Kakashi's eye widened. Jiraiya told you? Kakashi asked, surprised. Yeah, there's a story behind that, I'll tell you when I tell Tsunade. Naruto answered, knowing he should wait until they are in a secure location with Tsunade before talking about Madara and the events of the night of his birth. Well, I'm interested to hear it, and I'll be happy to tell you what it was like training under your father later. Kakashi said, eye smiling again. Great. Hey, Fu, how about I show you Ichiraku's? Naruto said as he turned to Fu. Sure, I want to see if it lives up to everything you've said about it. Fu replied. You'll see, it's the best ramen in the elemental nations. Naruto replied taking her hand. Hey, hang on, Kakashi said, causing the two to stop just as they started to jump off the roof. Are you two? He trails off, the two blush in response and nod. Huh, so you've given up on Sakura, huh? Yeah, what I felt with Sakura, it was just a crush compared to what I have with Fu. Naruto said, wrapping an arm around Fu's waist and pulling her close, causing her to turn to him and give him a smile, which he returned. Well, I'm glad for you, I know you've both had more than your share of pain. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto smiled at him. Oh, by the way, could you help me with the lightning element later? I've heard a lot about your Chidori. Fu asked the copy ninja. Huh, you're a lightning element too, huh? Lightning and water actually. Well, what do you know? Though lightning is my affinity, I happen to be good with water jutsu too. I'll help with both any way I can, just ask. Thanks, see you later, Mr. Hitaki. Fu replied. No need for that, Kakashi or Kakashi-sensei is fine. The copy ninja waved her off, making the mint-haired girl smile. Thanks, Kakashi. The girl replied before the two Jinchuriki were on their way. Jiraiya looked after them, slightly annoyed Naruto had given away his book as the copy ninja jumped down and landed beside him. So, how good are they? Kakashi asked the Sannin. Well, Naruto figured out how the shadow clones worked, and he taught it to Fu. Jiraiya said with a smirk and Kakashi turned to him, eyes slightly widened. I'd say they're strong enough to take on most of the Akatsuki and they have a wide variety of jutsu. But they're still perfecting their own jutsu and they have a bit more to learn. There's always room to improve, and they're going to need it. Jiraiya said, turning grim. Akatsuki's beginning to move. According to my intel, they may already have one of the Biju. Like I said, I'm confident they could take most of them, but neither is ready to face the likes of Itachi Uchiha alone yet. Jiraiya said before they heard a yell. Down the street, Naruto and Fu had stopped as Naruto ran into a pair of familiar faces, Sakura and Tsunade. Sakura turned to the Jinchuriki. Naruto was visibly surprised to run into his old teammate in the middle of a street. Sakura. Naruto. Sakura was no less stunned at seeing the blonde. She could tell he'd changed a lot from the day she'd last laid eyes on him. She briefly observed the changes in his appearance before she noticed the green-haired girl beside him. The Chunin could hardly hide her surprise when she noticed how he was holding the girl's hand with their fingers intertwined. She wondered who the new girl was before she was snapped out of her thoughts by the blonde's voice. It is you. Long time no see, Sakura. How've you been? Naruto greeted with a smile. Sakura returned the smile as she turned her attention back to the blonde. Good. Lady Tsunade's taught me a lot over the years, she said before she turned back to the green-haired girl. So, who's your new friend? Naruto grinned. Glad you asked. Sakura. Meet my girlfriend. Sakura's eyes widened, shock overcoming her features as her gaze darted back and forth between the young couple. What? Both Jinchuriki smirked from the look of complete bewilderment on the pink-haired Kunoichi's face before Fu took a step forward, offering her hand. I'm Fu, formerly of Taki. It's nice to meet you. Naruto said a lot about you and the rest of your graduating class. Sakura recovered and took her hand, still a little stunned. Fu, right, you're the one Lady Tsunade told us about. It's nice to meet you, too. So, are you two really? Fu smiled and nodded. The medic Nin could feel a slight pang of jealousy towards the two. Fu because she apparently now held the blonde's heart and Naruto because he'd found someone while the one she longed for was gone, but overall, she was happy for them. Knowing Naruto cared for her helped her out sometimes when Sasuke turned her down, but, though she had grown closer to him, she had come to care for Naruto more as a sibling and didn't think she could ever think of him the way he had wished she did. She was glad he'd moved on and found someone he'd hopefully find happiness with. She smiled as she continued. Well, I'm happy for you. She turned back to Naruto. I guess you've grown up in more ways than one, huh Naruto? Naruto grinned and chuckled. Yep. Wait till you see how much I've learned. I'm well on my way to becoming the next Hokage. I'll be the judge of that, brat. Tsunade spoke up and stepped forward, deciding that she had let them meet and catch up for long enough. Naruto smiled at his grandmother figure. I was wondering when you were going to speak up. Good to see you, Grandma Tsunade. Tsunade's eye twitched. Since this is your first time back in the village in almost 3 years, I'm going to let that slide. She then turned to the Nanabe Jinchuriki. So, you're Fu. I've gotta say, I'm surprised to hear you are together with this knucklehead. He certainly needs someone to keep him in check. She smirked at the indignant look on the blonde's face, but continued before he could protest. I trust Jiraiya trained you well and the two of you were able to keep the pervert in line. Yes, Lady Hokage. And let me say it's an honor to meet one of the most renowned kunoichi in the elemental nations. I've looked up to you for a long time. Fu said with a slight bow. Well, it's nice to see you know how to show some respect unlike the brat. Tsunade said with a smile. Ah, here's your forehead protector, you're already registered as a shinobi of the leaf. Tsunade reached into her robe, pulled out a forehead protector and handed it to Fu. Hey, why do you show her respect and not me? I'm the one who trained you for the past 2.5 years. Jiraiya asked as the green-haired Jinchuriki took the forehead protector. Because she's the Hokage while you're a dirty old man who peeks on girls in hot springs and often acts like a child. Fu deadpanned and Jiraiya crossed his arms and grumbled about disrespectful brats. You're really not helping yourself by acting like that, Ero-sensei. Fu said and everyone present except Jiraiya and Kakashi chuckled. Yo, boss. A young voice called out. The group turned to see Konohamaru, who stood in the middle of the road. The boy made a hand sign. In a poof of smoke, the boy is replaced by a buxom woman, her and crotch barely hidden with smoke. Jutsu. Jiraiya reacts to this as one would expect. He yells out in joy with a perverted grin on his face as his nose bled. Tsunade and Fu's faces took on looks of annoyance, Sakura looked shocked and offended, Naruto looked at his younger brother figure calmly, and Kakashi seemed to ignore the whole thing while he read his new book. How was that? Not too bad, huh? Konohamaru asked excited. Naruto just chuckled. Sorry Konohamaru, but I'm not a kid anymore, and you shouldn't be using jutsu like that either. Naruto said, and Konohamaru looked dejectedly to the ground as Sakura and Fu smiled at the blonde, thinking of how much he had grown. Naruto went to Konohamaru and put a hand over his shoulder. Don't worry, I'll teach you a really cool jutsu later, okay? And maybe even an improved version of the other one. The last part was said in whisper, followed by a wink from the blonde, which clearly said, this stays between the two of us or no jutsu. Konohamaru gave a brief mischievous grin before he schooled his features and smiled. Really? Thanks, boss. A moment later, Fu turned to Jiraiya with a slightly evil smirk. You know, Ero-sensei, the entire time you were looking at that girl, you were actually ogling a 12-year-old boy. She asked, causing Jiraiya to jerk, a disgusted look crossing his face as it turned green. The Hokage grinned in amusement at her teammate's discomfort. I think we're going to get along just fine, Fu. Must you always spoil my fun? The super pervert sobbed. Of course not. Fu replied sweetly. So long as A, it's not perverted, and B, you're not using our money, I'll be happy to leave you to your fun. Wait, he used your money. Doesn't he make enough from his books? Kakashi asked. He thought his favorite series were works of literary art, so how could the author be poor enough to have to mooch off a couple of kids? Similar thoughts, though not about the quality of the books, were going through everyone else's heads, and Jiraiya shrunk back as Tsunade and Sakura glared at him. He does. He's rich, we've seen his checkbook. But he's also stingy, Fu said, slightly annoyed as she recalled how Jiraiya had spent her money. We caught him paying for women and sake with our money and charged him with shadow clones. He avoided most of our attacks, until one of my clones got behind him and used 1,000 years of death. He never tried again after that. Naruto smirked and began to laugh at the memory, and everyone present, all of whom knew of the joke technique, laughed at the thought of it being used on the Sannin. Even Kakashi chuckled this time. Damn brats. Jiraiya thought, slightly panicked. I'm losing face here. Gotta change the subject. So, Tsunade, what have you taught Sakura? Trying to change the subject to save face, huh? Tsunade noted with a smirk. Anyway, it is about time to get serious. My original plan was for Kakashi face the three of you in a bell test, but if what Jiraiya wrote to me is true, that's probably a bad idea. Naruto, you'll be going one-on-one against Kakashi and Fu. You'll be taking on another Jonin of Konoha, Asuma Sarutobi. Asuma Sarutobi, of the 12 Guardian Ninja? Fu asked, surprised. Ah, you've heard of him. Yes, the same. Asuma and his team are waiting at the third training ground. Your performance will determine your future status. Naruto, Fu, Sakura and Kakashi walked to the third training ground, the trio of teens sharing a few stories of their time under the Sannin. When they arrived, they found Asuma, Shikamaru, Ino and Choji waiting for them. Secretly, Jiraiya, Tsunade and Shizune were watching from the nearby forest. Hey, Naruto, long time no see. Ino said happily. Hey, Ino, good to see you. Naruto replied with a smile. Glad you're back, Choji said. Just got here today, huh? Shikamaru asked. Yeah, less than an hour ago. So, have you grown up any? Got any smarter? Shikamaru asked. Surprisingly, yes, he has. Sakura said with a smile of her own. Really? Well, isn't that a surprise? Shikamaru smirked, causing Naruto to look slightly dejected and Fu to giggle. That's good, no offense, Naruto. So, who's the new girl? Ino asked. This is my girlfriend, Fu from Taki. Naruto introduced the green-haired girl as he hugged her waist slightly. This came as a surprise to Team 10, while Fu couldn't help but blush and feel extremely happy at Naruto's declaration. What? Seriously? Choji asked, overcoming the shock first. Congratulations you guys. Yeah, congrats man. Guess you really did grow up since you left the village. Shikamaru added. Ino nodded. Good for you guys, Though I can't believe you're the first one of us in a relationship. She said the last part quietly before turning to the green-haired Jinchuriki. So, you're Fu, huh? I hope you feel at home in our village. Thanks, I think I'm going to like it here. So far, no one's been bothering me about. She stopped and trailed off. Yeah, I always noticed Naruto was treated differently, never figured out why until we were told about his tenant. Sorry I wasn't there for you more, man. Shikamaru said, and the other Chunin nodded. Once the rest of the Konoha 11 found out the truth about Naruto, they had all connected the dots on his mistreatment and kicked themselves for not helping him more. Not so much Tenten, who didn't really know him, but still she did too after the effect he had on Neji. In addition, Neji now understood that Naruto had his life seemingly ruined by a seal too, but overcame it, increasing his respect for the blonde. Ah, that's alright, I didn't want pity anyway, you know. Naruto said. Glad to hear that, now Choji won't beat himself up over it anymore. Told you he wouldn't have wanted pity. Ino commented, smirking at her overweight teammate. Looks like we're going to have to step up our game and find someone for ourselves, huh, Sakura? Can't let ourselves lose out in love, can we? So, what's it like, having a boyfriend and being a student of the infamous pervert of the Sannin? She turned to Fu at the end. As the two girls began to talk, Shikamaru turned to the male Jinchuriki. Hey, Naruto. The lazy Chunin beckoned, pulling Naruto off to the side. This girl of yours, she troublesome in any way. Hope you're not whipped like my old man. Naruto snorted. No, she's my partner as well as my girlfriend, things are pretty even between us. Shikamaru raised a brow. That's so. Most of the girls of Met tend to boss people around, like Sakura and Ino. Naruto chuckled, thinking of all the times Ino often motivated Shikamaru, in other words pretty much forced him to do something, and had to remind Choji to curb his snacking habits. Actually, she doesn't boss me, but rather. We talk a lot, you know. And she has made me realize a lot of things I've been doing wrong and helped me out with them quite a bit. Like always rushing into battle, for example, Naruto explained. Anyway, how about you? Got your eye on anyone? Maybe a certain blonde? He smirked at the end, gesturing to the Yamanaka heiress. What? Shikamaru was taken aback. Before the Nara heir could speak further, Ino called out, Hey, what are you guys talking about over there? The two looked over and rejoined the group. Nothing. Just catching up on old times. Naruto said. Well, good to see you guys are getting along already. Asuma said, stepping forward. Nice to meet you, Fu. And welcome back, Naruto. I'm looking forward to seeing how you've grown since you left the village. Hey, Asuma-sensei, how's Kurenai? Naruto replied with his toothy smile. Asuma sighed. Was it that obvious? Did everyone know? Asuma asked and everyone laughed. He knew that Naruto had just gotten back and chances are no one had told him about him and Kurenai. If even he, the most oblivious and naive person out there, knew before he left, when they were trying to keep it a secret, everyone probably did. Ah, this place sure brings back memories. This was where our Genin exam took place. Naruto said with a smile as he reminisced. Yeah, and back then, Sakura said. That's right, back then, Sasuke was around too, Kakashi stated. Suddenly, all the warmth was sucked out of the air as the group's minds turned to the wayward Uchiha. Naruto seemed slightly depressed by the memory of his friend, who he failed to help. Fu comforted her boyfriend as Shikamaru and Choji did the same for their blonde teammate, who stared at the ground with a pained expression. However, none took it as bad as Sakura, who curled up in a ball with a cloud of gloom over her head and muttered, Sasuke's a taboo subject for Sakura, huh? Kakashi asked himself. Anyway, it's about time we got started. Kakashi said, walking forward. Naruto and I will go first, then Fu and Asuma, we can all catch up more later. The copy ninja said as he walked into the clearing away from the others. Alright, Naruto said, walking over and standing across from Kakashi. You gonna start off reading that book this time, Kakashi-sensei? Oh, I think I should save the pleasure of memorizing it for later. Kakashi said, uncovering his Sharingan. I think I better take this seriously, considering Lady Hokage wanted you to fight me one-on-one. Naruto smirked in response as both tensed and prepared themselves. Shikamaru, will you do the honors? Sure. It's not too troublesome. Shikamaru stepped forward and stood for a moment. Okay. Start. Naruto poofed into smoke, much to the surprise of almost everyone there. A clone. When did he? Kakashi said before he sensed something. He turned to see Naruto beside a tree throw a shuriken. He was curious what this was for until he saw Naruto quickly run through hand signs, the speed of said signs impressing him. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto called out and the one shuriken became about 100. Before they were even halfway to Kakashi, Naruto had already finished another technique. Wind Style. Great breakthrough. A powerful gust of wind slammed into the shuriken, speeding them up and increasing their power. Just as they reached Kakashi, he was suddenly replaced with a log which is torn to pieces in seconds. Huh, a wind user, who'd have thought? Asuma said absent-mindedly. Wow, that was a pretty good combination. Ino noted. Kakashi appeared behind Naruto, a kunai at his throat. Well, that was unexpected, but I'm afraid you'll have to do better than that, he said before Naruto smirked. Suddenly, the blonde exploded, sending Kakashi flying, until he poofed into smoke. A shadow clone explosion, huh? Interesting. Asuma said, remembering seeing the attack from Itachi as the other spectators looked on. You really have grown, Naruto, I really will have to take this seriously. Kakashi thought as he hid behind a tree. Naruto decided then to activate his Wind Dragon's vigilance technique and made the necessary hand sign. Kakashi's eyes widened as his Sharingan saw chakra saturating the air. Not enough to obscure his vision, but it was there. What is this? This chakra is, he thought before dodging as his senses, honed by years of experience, warned him of impending danger. A kunai with an explosive note dug into the tree where he had just been hiding and he jumped back as it exploded. Naruto appeared behind Kakashi and threw a punch, but Kakashi blocked the attack and jumped back to avoid a follow-up kick. Okay, you have ninjutsu down, let's see your taijutsu. Kakashi said as he got ready. Just like last time, right Kakashi-sensei? Naruto charged forward and engaged the Jonin in a taijutsu fight. Kakashi was shocked. He could barely keep up with Naruto. Even with the Sharingan, he found himself on the defensive. Naruto ducked under a kick and attempted a leg sweep, which Kakashi jumped over. Naruto then launched himself towards Kakashi and with a punch aimed at his face. Kakashi blocked with both arms but was kneed in the stomach and then kicked by the blonde, sending him through the air and into a tree, the bark cracking at the impact. Wow, he nailed him. Sakura said. What did you expect? You know what we're going to have to deal with. Fu noted, causing them to remember the pair had been training to fight the Akatsuki. True, but I wonder how he found Kakashi so fast. Shikamaru said. It's a technique that uses the wind to mimic the abilities of sensors. He calls it the Wind Dragon's vigilance. Fu explained. That's incredible. Asuma noted. It was thought possible to do something like that, but it's been pure theory for years. What's his range? 8 kilometers. Fu replied to the group's shock. Despite the fact that he was almost on the other side of the training ground, Naruto was able to cross the distance between them in an instant and the copy ninja barely avoided a kick that almost knocked the tree down. Kakashi used the body flicker to increase the distance between them but was shocked when Naruto proved faster with the jutsu and was forced to block a kick. Naruto jumped high into the air to avoid a sweeping kick and attempted an axe kick, but Kakashi rolled out of the way, the ground fractured on impact. Kakashi went to counter but Naruto jumped back and Kakashi ran through hand signs himself. Okay, that's taijutsu, time for next lesson, genjutsu. Kakashi said before he vanished. Naruto. A voice growled. Naruto turned to see Sasuke standing there in his level 2 form, glaring at him menacingly. Hey, you're going to have to better than that, Kakashi-sensei, release. Naruto said and the illusion shattered. Let's see how you like it. Naruto said before he cast an illusion of his own and suddenly a tree grew out of the ground behind him and the bark wrapped itself around him. Huh. Demonic illusion. Tree binding death, huh. I'm surprised you can use genjutsu Naruto, but you're going to have to do better too. Release. Kakashi said before the illusion broke, only for him to suddenly feel the wind get knocked out of him. Another illusion shattered and he saw Naruto before him, his fist buried in his gut. This is demonic illusion, double false surroundings. I underestimated him, Kakashi thought. He was helpless as Naruto punched him 3 times before kicking him halfway across the battlefield. Naruto created a single clone before holding out his hand and in a slight, visible flare of chakra, his sword, Hisho Taichi appeared in his hand. Huh, where'd he get that sword? Choji asked. It's called Hisho Taichi, it's a sword made for him in Takumi village. Fu said. Asuma whistled. You got a sword made from the village of artisans. That's lucky, those are the finest weapons in the continents. Asuma noted. You have no idea. Fu smirked. Naruto sweeps his blade sideways and called out, Tempest Wind. And a powerful whirlwind was unleashed from the blade as his clone ran through hand signs. Fire style. Dragon Flame Bomb. The clone breathed out a stream of fire which combined with the wind to create a firestorm of white-hot flame. Kakashi cursed as he quickly body flickered out of the way. Whoa, he's really not kidding around is he? Shikamaru stated. Naruto, Sakura said dumbfounded, she couldn't believe he was this far ahead of her. Naruto looked around for Kakashi before he was suddenly pulled underground. Kakashi then popped of the ground and threw a kunai at the clone at near point blank, destroying it. Kakashi hadn't heard Fu's explanation of Naruto's sensing jutsu and so didn't know Naruto knew where he was all along. Looks like I got you, Naruto. Kakashi noted, before he was surprised as Naruto turned out to be a clone. 2 Narutos then jumped into the air, one used wind style, great breakthrough, while the other used fire style, phoenix flower, raining enhanced fireballs on Kakashi, who dodged them all, but all this was just a distraction as one of Naruto's clones prepared to cast another genjutsu. The other clones were for replacement in case things went wrong, but Naruto was confident it was over. Kakashi dodged another fireball, he would have used water wall, but against a fire and wind combination, that was useless. He managed to get to the nearby lake and ran through hand signs. Water style. Water Dragon Jutsu. A giant water dragon rose from the lake and flew towards the clones, destroying them. Kakashi only had a moment to breathe before he suddenly ducked to dodge a fast-moving crescent of wind that cut down several trees behind him. He looked in the direction of the attack to see Naruto charging forward, slashing his sword and releasing more blades of wind. Kakashi charged and dodged them all, drawing a kunai and focusing chakra into the blade as he saw Naruto's sword was charged with wind chakra. The 2 clashed blades, exchanging blows, and quickly, Kakashi found himself outclassed again, bringing out a second kunai to attempt to even the odds. While still on the defensive, he managed to block every attack. He blocked a powerful downward slash from Naruto with both his kunai when suddenly, Naruto disappeared, his body distorting and fading from the feet up until he was gone. Realizing he was caught in another illusion, he quickly broke it, to find he was surrounded. Naruto had his sword at his throat and 3 of his clones held kunai at 3 different vital spots. Looks like I win, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto smirked. Yeah, you've grown, Naruto. You may have already surpassed me. Kakashi said as Naruto removed his blades and dispelled his clones before sealing his sword away again. We'll talk about your performance after Fu's test. Come on, let's join the spectators, huh? He said as he got his book out again. I can hardly believe that's the same boy I met 3 years ago. Shizune said, shocked Kakashi lost. So, what do you think, Tsunade? Jiraiya asked. Well, if you have one positive trait, it's that you're a good teacher. Tsunade stated. His last move, he won using a weak genjutsu with perfect timing, and he had clones hidden just in case things went wrong. Also helps that he didn't just swarm him with shadow clones like he used to. I'll tell you my opinion when all's said and done. Now, let's see what the girl can do. She finished as Naruto and Kakashi made it back to the group. Wow, I can't believe you actually won. Nice going, Shikamaru said, as the others congratulated him and Fu gave him a hug. Sakura gave a quiet congratulation then looked away into the ground. She knew she wouldn't be able to take on their sensei yet. Naruto, and probably Sasuke too, were still beyond her. Even after all her work, she was still behind. That was an impressive sword. Fu said it was called Hisho Tai Chi. I'm guessing it helps you channel wind chakra. Asuma noted. Yeah, it lets me manipulate the wind and cast wind jutsu without hand signs with as little chakra as possible. Naruto replied. Huh, even by their standards that's impressive. You must have made quite the impression on someone for them to have made that for you. Asuma said. Yeah, this old guy, Seimei, he's a grumpy old man but he's alright. The blonde replied before Asuma walked onto the field. So, I guess it's our turn next. Asuma said, taking his place. I'm honored to face one of the 12 guardian ninja. Fu said as she stood across from him. Well, I'll try not to disappoint you, Shikamaru, whenever you're ready. Asuma said as he got out his trench knives and began channeling chakra through them. Alright, begin, Shikamaru said. Asuma and Fu charged at each other and Fu swept her hands back. In her right hand, she summoned her own blade, Okibi no Yaiba, and in her left a water sword formed and she channeled raw chakra into both, strengthening them and causing Okibi no Yaiba to erupt in flames, much to the spectators' shock. So, she's got one too. Asuma noted as the two clashed. Asuma quickly found himself overwhelmed. Fu's dual blade style relied not only on precision but also overwhelming speed, which combined with the flames quickly put Asuma on the defensive, barely able to protect himself. Asuma parried a slash from Fu's water sword and leaned back to avoid a sweeping kick from Fu. Asuma thought he saw an opening and slashed, but Fu skipped back and threw her water blade. Asuma dodged to the side and charged as Fu dismissed her sword and began running through hand signs. Water style. Water wall. Fu blew out a massive amount of water from her mouth which rose to form a protective wall, and Asuma found himself caught in the wall of water as Fu quickly ran through more hand signs. Lightning style. Earth flash. Fu thought, unable to speak because of the water, and released a massive wave of electricity from her hands which traveled through the water and electrocuted Asuma. Damn. Asuma cursed in his mind as he grit his teeth in pain as the lightning coursed through his body. He channeled wind chakra to nullify the lightning as best he could. After a few moments, Fu released her jutsu and Asuma jumped back out of the collapsing wall, twitching slightly. Fu then made the snake hand sign. Water style. Exploding water shockwave. Fu spit out an enormous wave of water which crashed towards Asuma before it too was electrocuted. Asuma's eyes widened and he quickly jumped into the trees and through the branches, trying to stay above the lightning-infused water as it followed him, knocking down several trees along the way. Soon, the water level had fallen beneath the branches and in moments there were only puddles on the ground, but Fu had vanished. Whoa, you two didn't waste any time over the past 2 years, did you? Choji asked as he stared at the destruction caused by the attack, and Naruto just chuckled in response. Great, she's this good at water jutsu and now the ground's covered, as Shikamaru would say, troublesome. Asuma smirked at his own predicament. A moment later, a wave of fire rushed at him and he was forced to jump out of the tree. The moment he landed, 3 water clones of Fu emerged from nearby puddles and attacked with taijutsu. The clones, only being at 1/10 of the real Fu's power, only lasted for a short time, though they did show impressive taijutsu skill before being destroyed. As the final clones dispersed, a swarm of insects suddenly burst from the ground. Asuma cried out in shock before he was suddenly replaced with a log. The swarm abandoned the hunk of wood and shot across the field towards Asuma's hiding place. Turning to the swarm, he tossed his trench knives off his hands into the air and made 4 hand signs, catching the blades when he was done before breathing out a cloud of gunpowder which the insects flew into. Asuma created a spark using a piece of flint in his mouth and the swarm was killed in the explosion. She can use insects like the aburame? Ino asked, slightly creeped out. Yeah, it's the ability she gets for being the Jinchuriki of the 7-tailed rhinoceros beetle. Naruto said. Interesting, so that's how she finds him so easily. Shikamaru noted. Huh, what do you mean? Choji asked. She must have tagged him with some insects while she was fighting him at close range, that's probably how she always knows where he is. Shikamaru explained. As the cloud cleared, Asuma saw Fu rushing towards him with her sword. he threw one of his trench knives at her, but she ducked underneath it as she summoned 3 shuriken and threw them as she continued to move towards Asuma. Asuma dodged the shuriken and Fu as she attempted to run him through. After a brief exchange, he managed to get the upper hand and slashed Fu across the stomach, only for her to turn into lightning, electrocuting Asuma. At this moment, the real Fu, hidden in the forest, finished a jutsu, earth-style, spears of stone. 3 spears of rock shot out of the ground and were quickly grabbed by 2 clones of the green-haired kunoichi, who jumped high into the air and threw them all at once at Asuma, surrounding him in a triangle formation while the real Fu finished weaving another set of hand signs. Lightning style. Lightning bind. Fu called out and the javelins were connected by walls of electricity, trapping Asuma inside. Huh, been a long time since I've seen this technique. Asuma noted inside the barrier. You knew someone else who knew this jutsu? Fu asked, slightly surprised as she walked towards the barrier. Yeah, a buddy of mine from the Ninja Guardians, Katane. Asuma said, smirking before he made a hand sign. Fu was surprised. She knew the jutsu couldn't be broken from the inside when she sensed something from behind her. She dodged slightly to the side and her eyes widened as she saw Asuma's thrown trench knife speeding towards her barrier, propelled and charged by Asuma's wind chakra. She could only watch as the knife collided with the barrier, causing it to crackle with lightning for a few moments before breaking. Once the barrier fell, Asuma charged at the Jinchuriki, who summoned a pair of water swords blocked his attack. The two once more exchanged blows before Asuma managed to disarm her of one of her water swords and seemed to catch her. Hey, guess that's it. Asuma smirked, only for his smirk to fall as Fu smirked and a moment later exploded. She had created an exploding shadow clone just in case that didn't work and substituted with it the moment her barrier fell. Asuma was sent flying into a tree by the explosion. The real Fu suddenly appeared, rising from the ground as if it were water and, focusing her chakra to her hand, called her sword back to her and placed it on Asuma's neck as insects surrounded the pair. You were saying? The green-haired kunoichi asked and Asuma chuckled. Alright, you got me. Asuma said, in good humor despite his loss, and Fu dismissed her sword and helped him up. Huh, you two are pretty good. Thanks, and you live up to your reputation, she said as they walked back to the group. Way to go, Fu, Naruto said with his fox-like smile. I can't believe you two actually managed to beat both of our sensei. Shikamaru said, shaking his head with a grin. Well, the new generation always surpasses the previous one. It's only a matter of time. Kakashi said. Hey, speak for yourself. Jiraiya said as he, Tsunade and Shizune joined them. Hey, pervy sage, did you guys see the whole thing? Naruto asked. Jiraiya sighed at being called that again. Of course we watched, brat. Good job, you two. I told you good teachers beget good students. Yeah, go ahead and pat yourself on the back. Fu said, rolling her eyes. Seriously, thanks for teaching us, Jiraiya-sensei. Oh, finally showing me the respect I deserve. Don't get used to it. Fu smirked. Okay, I've gotta admit, you two did pretty well. Tsunade said. You not only won, you showed good planning and always kept a few aces ready in case things got bad. I think you're ready for the rank of Special Jonin, thanks to Jiraiya's recommendations, until you have enough experience leading missions to make Jonin. Provided the promotion was endorsed by a powerful and respected shinobi of the village, like Jiraiya, or the Hokage, there were documented examples of why the promotion was deserved and the ninja in question proved themselves. A ninja could be promoted up to Special Jonin without going through exams. Those present congratulated the two as Sakura remained quiet. Knowing now that, not only was Naruto stronger than her, but the new girl was too made her feel useless. She knew that when it came to fighting, she wouldn't be able to help when it came time to face Sasuke or the Akatsuki. Back when they were first made a team, she had believed that Naruto was useless and that she and Sasuke would have to carry the team. Soon she had a wake-up call and realized she was the inadequate one. Naruto and Sasuke were growing stronger every day, and she was just a burden, a worthless fangirl. It took Sasuke leaving for her to change. Now, after 2.5 years of training, She still wasn't as strong as her teachers, and Naruto was stronger than Kakashi and still growing stronger. She was almost sure Sasuke would have similar power. Even after all this time, all her hard work, she was still being left behind. What's the matter, Sakura? Naruto asked, noticing the pink-haired girl seemed down. Oh, nothing, come on, let's celebrate. How about your favorite, Ichiraku ramen? Sakura asked, trying to change the subject. Fu walked over to Naruto. Yeah, I've wanted to try that place for some time after all the praise you give it, she said before whispering. We'll talk to her about it later. Naruto nodded. Alright, come on, let's head to Ichiraku's, my treat. Naruto said, excited to finally have a taste of what was in his opinion the best food in the elemental Natuans. Hold on, Naruto, we still need to find a place for Fu to stay. She can stay with me, besides, I was planning to find a bigger place tomorrow. Naruto said. Huh, how are you going to afford that? Tsunade asked. Oh boy, here we go, Jiraiya thought to himself as he took one from his student's handbook and replaced himself with a clone he set up. He feared, rightfully, that after Tsunade was pried off of Naruto she would probably vent on him. Moments later, Naruto had explained how much money he had, and how he had gotten it. While the bounty hunting wasn't too surprising, everyone present was shocked by his luck at gambling, but Tsunade's face quickly took on a furious expression. A loud, what, could be heard halfway across the village. After Tsunade had been pried off of Naruto, who she had tried to throttle upon hearing about his luck, he, Fu, Sakura and Team 10 were all sitting at Ichiraku's. Kakashi had paperwork to do. Along the way they ran into Iruka who joined them. Iruka sat on the end on one side of Naruto, Fu was on the other side, then Sakura, Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, and Asuma. Naruto was on his sixth bowl, as was Choji. Fu was on her third and everyone else was on their first. Naruto put down his now empty bowl. Ah, now the hit's the spot. See, what did I tell you, Fu? You were right, this is delicious, we'll have to come here more often. Fu said. Tuki heard this and began thinking of how much money he would make off the two of them. While she only seemed to eat half as much as Naruto, that was still several times the amount of most others. I can't believe you actually managed to beat Kakashi, you've really grown a lot under Jiraiya's tutelage. Iruka said. Yeah, I'm stronger than you now, Iruka-sensei. Naruto said and Iruka laughed. I hate to admit but, you're right, I couldn't take on Kakashi even without his Sharingan. Congratulations on your promotion, by the way, the academy teacher said. Thanks, so, who else was promoted? Naruto asked. You kidding, everyone else is a Chunin now. Shikamaru said. That's nothing though, Neji made Jonin. Remember Gaara? Well, his siblings made Jonin too. Actually, Temari's here in Konoha right now. Really, I'll have to congratulate her, even if it's a little late. So, what about Gaara? Naruto asked and everyone became quiet, not sure how he'd take it. What? Gaara's, the new cage. Iruka said, shocking Naruto and Fu. Naruto smiled even though his eyes looked a little sad. Gaara was named cage, huh? Naruto said. Fu looked at him, a little worried about how Naruto would react. That's great. He sure had changed a lot, the last time I saw him. I'm sure he makes a great cage. But I'm not gonna be outdone by him. I'll be Hokage someday. Naruto really was happy for Gaara, considering how he was when he first met him. He was also jealous though, Gaara was basically living his dream. So, how long have you two been together? Ino asked, curious about it and trying to change the subject and wanting to get some good gossip. About 6 months. Fu answered before she, after more of Ino's prodding, told them how they met, got together, and their first date. Wow, Naruto, didn't think you had it in you. Iruka said, chuckling. The boys shared similar thoughts while Ino was jealous but also happy to get her hands on some gossip and Sakura remained quiet. Hey, well, what can I say? So, how has everyone been? Afterward, they began to talk about everything they had been through. Fu shocked them with the story of how she got the chameleon contract. Other than that, it was largely just talking about how everyone improved. When the sun was beginning to set, Naruto and Fu stood up. Sorry guys, we have to talk to Grandma Tsunade about something. Hey, old man, thanks for the meal, what's the charge? No problem, Naruto, great to have you back. He said, handing Naruto his bill. Naruto looked shocked for a moment, suddenly getting why no one liked paying for him, and he promptly paid with a check. Be sure to bring that girl of yours back, okay? Sure. See you later, old man. Nice meeting you all. Oh, hey Sakura, can we talk later? Fu said. Huh, oh, sure thing. Bye. Sakura replied before Naruto and Fu vanished, Naruto in a poof of smoke and Fu in a spark of lightning. The two entered Tsunade's office to find Jiraiya, Shizune and Kakashi with the woman, who was sitting at her desk. Shizune stood by the desk. Jiraiya leaned against a nearby wall and Kakashi was standing to the right side of the room, reading his new book. Hey, Grandma Tsunade, nice to see you working instead of gambling your money away. Naruto said as he entered, earning a glare. He then remembered he shouldn't talk about gambling in front of her now that she knew he had made what was now over 100 million ryo gambling. Yeah, so, Jiraiya said you two have something important to tell me, and it has something to do with your tenants. Speaking of which, you didn't use their powers when we sparred. How good's your control? Kakashi asked. Naruto and Fu both looked down, thinking about what that power did to them. We can summon at will and control up to 4 tails. Fu stated. At that point, we can enter a second version of our chakra cloaks where the chakra forms a solid shell around us and we basically become miniature versions of our Biju. Fu said. But going that far takes a lot out of us, not to mention it burns our skin off, going to that state is a last resort. We can't use 5 tails at will, but if we do go that far, we start to lose control, and at 6 tails we would completely lose it. Naruto added. 4 tails, that's pretty impressive. Kakashi said. Well, it helps that they're actually helping us. Naruto said. Kakashi, Tsunade and Shizune were shocked to hear that. They're helping you. You mean you've worked out some kind of deal with them? Kakashi asked, his visible eye widened slightly. Tsunade leaned back in her chair. I'm surprised. I didn't think they'd be willing to help you unless your lives, and theirs by extension, were at stake. She said, remembering what she'd heard from her grandmother, Konoha's first Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Mito Uzumaki, about her dealings with the fox. The demon had always been hostile towards her, fighting her for control at every opportunity. Though she did gain significant control, the Kyuubi had never been willing to lend her aid, not without trying to influence her. Mito had actually pitied the Kyuubi for being so consumed with hatred and rage, though according to her, the beast didn't believe that was sincere and it seemed to anger him even more. You think they're trustworthy? Jiraiya nodded, crossing his arms as he began to explain. I was a little worried they were trying to deceive us at first, but I think they can be trusted, for now at least. They have a good reason to help us and a lot to lose if they betrayed us. Tsunade quirked a brow. What do you mean? What exactly is the agreement? The reason they're helping is because of who's responsible for the Kyuubi's attack, 15 years ago. Jiraiya said, surprising everyone again. It's someone they can't fight on their own, and he's probably the Akatsuki leader. Wait, someone caused the Kyuubi attack? Kakashi asked, shocked upon finding out someone was responsible for that tragedy and the death of 2 people who had become parental figures to him, Naruto's own parents. Kakashi, you didn't know this, but Naruto's mother, Kushina, was the previous Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Jiraiya said, shocking Kakashi and Shizune, who also didn't know. Jiraiya, does Naruto? Tsunade began. Yes, he knows who his parents were. Jiraiya answered. I see, Naruto, Tsunade began sadly. It's alright, Grandma Tsunade, I understand why you didn't tell me. Naruto answered with a smile. I was upset at first, but I got over it. So, you're saying someone attacked Minato-sensei when Naruto was born and broke Kushina's seal? Kakashi asked, seething at the thought someone purposely caused that tragedy and killed 2 people he saw as family in the process. Yes, Naruto's birth weakened the seal and someone used him as a hostage to get Minato away from Kushina. By the time Naruto was safe and he returned, the seal was already broken and the Kyuubi was under his control. Jiraiya explained. Wait, control? Tsunade asked. She knew someone must have broken the seal, but that they had controlled the Kyuubi. That's right, Tsunade, you know there's only one person who would have been capable of all that. Jiraiya, you can't seriously mean, Tsunade said, eyes wide. That's right, the one responsible was Madara Uchiha, and he's most likely the mastermind behind the Akatsuki. Jiraiya said, shocking everyone except Naruto and Fu. I had always believed he was the only one who could have pulled it off, the Kyuubi just confirmed my suspicions. No way, Shizune said. I can't believe it, he's actually still alive, Kakashi said. Yeah, even if he's not affiliated with the Akatsuki, he's out there. After digging around a bit, I managed to confirm he was alive, though not much else. Jiraiya said. This is a disaster, Tsunade said, as she rubbed her temple, nursing the beginnings of a headache. Tell me about it, Jiraiya said grimly. Anyway, that's why the Biju are helping, they know they can't defend themselves against Madara's Sharingan. Tsunade thought about just how dangerous things were if Madara was alive. Kakashi thought about Minato and Kushina and about what Madara could possibly be planning. What do we know about him? Fu asked. Unfortunately, not much. Tsunade sighed. After his betrayal and supposed death, he was pretty much erased from our records. He was skilled in space-time jutsu, genjutsu and the fire element. Obviously he was a master of the Sharingan, and was skilled with several different weapons and fighting styles. He's considered one of the most gifted and skilled ninja in history. That's pretty much all we know. Everyone there silently let all this sink in. Well, I haven't been home in over 2 years and we've got to talk to Sakura, so we should get going. Naruto said. Hang on, Naruto. Tsunade said. Before you go, there's something for you, she said as she stood up and walked to the portraits of the previous Hokage. Your father left this for you. We were waiting until you learned the truth about your parentage, she said as she reached for the picture of Minato to reveal a complex blood-red seal. That's a blood seal, Naruto said as he and Fu stared wide-eyed at it. It was meant to protect family secrets. It required the fresh blood and chakra of a close relative to break the seal. Kakashi's visible eye and Shizune's eyes widened slightly. Neither had known about the seal. Tsunade learned of it from a note from the third Hokage, addressed to his successor, and told Jiraiya. Yes, you know what to do, I hope. Tsunade asked and Naruto nodded, slightly dumbfounded, as he walked to the seal and after a moment of staring at it, he bit his thumb and placed his hand on the seal before focusing his chakra on it. In a poof of smoke, 4 scrolls, 1 red, 2 yellow and 1 white appeared. The white one had his name on it. After a moment of silence, he opened the scroll to find a message. Naruto, if you're reading this, then I'm dead. Of course, I don't know how this happened as I'm writing this, but I always prepare for everything. I can only hope your mother, Kushina, is still there with you. If not, I'm sorry I failed to protect her. Know that I, and she if she's not there with you, love you very much. I was never happier than the day Kushina told me we were going to be parents. I hope that, one day, you find a woman who will make you as happy as she did me. In the yellow scrolls are my own jutsu. The Rasengan and the Haraishin, as well as one of the special kunai for the jutsu and information on the space-time barrier. Jiraiya, your godfather, can help you with the Rasengan, and if you need help with the Haraishin, then look up the Hokage's elite guards, Genma Shiranui, Rado Namiyashi and Akio Takashi. To aid them in their duty to protect the Hokage, I shared the secrets of the technique with them, though as of now, they can only use it as a group. The Rasengan is based on the tailed beast ball, the ultimate attack of the Biju. As powerful as it is, the Rasengan is still incomplete. I intended to add elemental manipulation to it, but never managed it. I believe that you can succeed where I failed. After all, parents always believe in their kids, don't they? In the red scroll is everything your mother taught me about the Uzumaki sealing jutsu. As you may know, Your mother's clan were the leaders of the now destroyed Uzushiogakure and were distant relatives of the Senju clan of Konoha. They were famous for their longevity and their sealing jutsu, which were without rival. It was fear of their sealing prowess that led to their destruction during the wars. This is the way the world is. People wage war and destroy that which they don't understand, or that which they believe will threaten their loved ones. That leads to pain, which leads to hatred and a never-ending cycle of revenge. I, as well as Jiraiya Sensei, believe that one day, this cycle will be broken and there will be true peace. I never found the answer, but I think you can. Finding this answer will be difficult, but Naruto, never forget your parents love you and believe in you. Your father, Minato Namikaze, 4th Hokage of Konohagakure. Luckily for Jiraiya, he had told him he was his godfather. This led to a brief falling out between the two, but Naruto eventually forgave him, after he taught him a few tricks he wasn't planning to as compensation. He knew he was lucky the boy was so forgiving. Still, suffice to say he may not have been as forgiving if this was the first he had heard of this. Naruto read the scroll over twice with an unreadable expression, not knowing whether to feel joy or sorrow after doing so. Naruto, are you okay? Fu asked concerned. I'll be fine, Fu. Naruto said. Let's get going, we have to meet Sakura later, right? I need to show you around a bit and show you my apartment. Yeah, let's go, Fu said, and the two of them walked towards the door. The adults watched them leave in silence before thinking on everything they had learned and began to discuss what they knew and what to do about Madara and the Akatsuki. Half an hour later, the sun was just about set as Naruto and Fu reached the blonde's apartment. They walked through the building to his door and Naruto unlocked and opened the door. He looked around for a moment and sighed. Everything was covered in dust, and he knew a lot of the food was long since spoiled. This is going to take a while, Naruto sighed. Fu took a few steps forward, sweeping her gaze across the small apartment. It only featured 3 rooms, the main room, which contained the kitchen, a small table with 4 chairs and a couch across from a small TV, the bathroom a bedroom. Well, at least we have shadow clones to help. Besides, we'll only be living here a few days tops, right? Fu asked. Yeah, Sakura should be waiting for us, let's leave some shadow clones behind to take care of this while we go. Naruto replied, as they both made cross-shaped hand signs. Both created 5 clones that proceeded to begin cleaning the small apartment. I think she's probably worried she's still behind you. You told me that she used to be a fangirl. You sure you're okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Let's go. In an unknown area of Konoha served as Root's headquarters, Danzo stood in the center of the room. Before him, kneeling on his knee, was one of his operatives. Report, what is the status of the Jinchuriki? They both fought well. Lord Danzo, the Kyuubi host, was able to defeat Kakashi Hatake and the Nanabi host defeated Asuma Sarutobi. The Root operative then gave a detailed account of the battle and their interactions. I see. Continue to observe the 2 Jinchuriki. Danzo said. Yes, Lord Danzo. The agent vanished as Danzo thought on the 2 weapons. Though, as he believed ninja should be prepared to sacrifice anything, and these 2, and most of Konoha, was weak under the ways of the Senju, he did admit there were some impressive ninja in the recent generations. It would seem at the least these 2 would be effective weapons for the village. He still wanted to keep a close eye on them, especially the Nanabi Jinchuriki, and already had plans to place one of his own operatives on their team. Night had fallen as the 2 walked the town. They walked to the park and found Sakura standing with her back against a tree. Hey Sakura, Naruto said. Naruto, Fu, good to see you. So, Sakura, what's wrong? Naruto asked. Is that what you wanted to talk about? I told you it was nothing. Sakura answered. Sakura, I just met you today and I can already tell something's wrong. Fu said. Sakura, you're my friend and I just want to help, tell me what's going on. Naruto added. Fine, it's just, when we were a team, you, me, and Sasuke, I was useless, just a burden. Remember, I promised, when you came back, that I'd be stronger and that we would bring Sasuke back together. But I know I couldn't take on Kakashi Sensei and win, and you and Fu are so much stronger than me, Sasuke probably is too. Even after all this time, I'm still behind you, still useless. That's not true. You've been training under Grandma Tsunade. I'm sure you've learned a lot while I was gone. Naruto said. And we'll help you any way we can. I am a member of Team 7 and if you're a friend of Naruto's, I'd like to be friends too. Fu said with a smile. Fu, Sakura said. Fu's right, you're not alone Sakura, never think you have to deal with these kind of stuff on your own. Thanks, you too, Sakura said. So, what did Tsunade teach you? Fu asked and Sakura gave them a rundown of her new skills. Wow, she taught you her super strength huh? Naruto asked, slightly nervous. Good thing I learned from Fu not to use or talk about perverted jutsu around girls. Yeah, she also taught me to read my opponent's movements. By fighting you and beating you into the ground, right? Fu asked with a smirk. Jiraiya too, huh? Sakura smirked back. How about genjutsu? If your chakra controls that good, it should be easy for you and you could use the illusions to distract your opponents and leave them open. With that strength, you only need one good hit on most enemies, but it probably takes a lot of chakra. If you mastered genjutsu, you wouldn't have to waste so much chakra missing fast opponents. Naruto noted. Jiraiya had us read tons of books on herbs, antidotes and poisons. If Lady Tsunade taught you to make antidotes, you must know how to make powerful and hard to detect poisons too. Why not add those to your attacks? Fu asked. That sounds good, you really have matured haven't you Naruto, you're a lot smarter than you used to be. Sakura said and Naruto rubbed the back of his head in an embarrassed manner. Only because Jiraiya forced him to every step of the way. Fu teased with a smirk. I'll bet, he'd never have grown like this by choice. Sakura added with a smirk of her own. Ah, come on, Fu, Sakura, don't say things like that. Naruto sulked as the two girls chuckled at him. Anyway, I didn't have time to learn genjutsu. I had to focus on what Lady Tsunade was teaching me. Well, we can help you with that and Kakashi-sensei probably can too. Naruto said. Yeah, and Shizune knows a lot about poisons and poison techniques. Sakura said, remembering hearing about her poison fog technique. Sounds good, but it's getting late, we should head home. Fu said. They then said their goodbyes before they began to head home. The pair of Jinchuriki returned to Naruto's apartment after they had finished talking to Sakura. The clones had cleaned up the apartment and restocked the fridge with enough food to last a few days. I'm gonna take a shower, okay? Fu said. Yeah, I'll make something to eat, should be ready when you're out. Naruto replied. Thanks, hope it's not ramen. I know, don't eat it all the time. Naruto rolled his eyes with a smirk. He had learned from the many books Jiraiya forced his clones to read and reread that Fu was right about that. Good. Fu replied. Half an hour later, Fu came out of the shower and Naruto had finished cooking. He wasn't a master chef or anything but they had both learned to cook decent meals. Fu came out to find he had made nikujaga with a bowl of white rice and miso soup. Fu smiled as she approached the table, the aroma of their dinner reaching her as she placed her hand on the chair. Looks good, she said as they both sat down. Thanks, let's dig in. Itadakimasu. Both said before they began to eat. So, what do you think of Konoha, Fu? Great. You were right, guess I didn't have much to worry about after all. I was afraid I wouldn't get along with Sakura. See, just like I told you. Yeah, and as always, it was fun teasing Jiraiya in front of everyone. Fu said and both laughed. So, tomorrow is our first mission, what do you think it'll be? Fu asked. I don't know, but I'm sure it'll be something boring. I hope our first mission is something big and exciting. Naruto said. Naruto, they say you should be careful what you wish for. Fu replied. At least we won't be stuck on D ranks anymore. Besides, based on what you've told me, you have terrible luck with missions, we'll probably get stuck fighting someone disproportionately strong, like when you ran into Zabuza, or when you came to Taki. Fu stated. Yeah, you're right, Naruto said. You know, someday, we'll be the senseis teaching the next generation. Yeah, hard to imagine, isn't it? Fu said, looking down at her almost empty plate with a smile. But you've already been teaching that Konohamaru kid, right? The one you said was like a little brother. What are you planning to teach him anyway? The Rasengan. Naruto answered simply. What? Seriously? At his level he'd have to use shadow clones to get it. I know, but we're a lot alike. We both dream of being Hokage and acknowledgement. Besides, I got it in a few weeks. Naruto said boastfully. Yeah, and I got it in few days. Fu said with a smirk. Ah, come on, Fu. That was after Pervy Sage's chakra control training. My control was awful back then. I couldn't even use a basic clone, and besides, you used the shadow clone jutsu to learn it faster. Naruto complained and Fu giggled at her boyfriend. An hour later, the pair had finished their meals. Since Naruto had cooked, Fu was the one that had to do the dishes, so the blonde took the opportunity to take a shower. When he got out, he found his girlfriend sitting on the couch and reading a book. Wow, you finished the dishes fast. The blonde was surprised. Did you use clones? He asked as he sat next to her and pulled her to his chest. Nah, there weren't that many. It's not so bad to do the chores by ourselves from time to time. Otherwise one day they might revolt. Fu joked, without lifting her head from her book. Besides, you took a while in the bath. I was starting to think someone kidnapped you, a little more and I would have come to search for you. Yeah, right, you were just looking for an excuse to see me. And you say I'm the perverted one. Naruto chuckled as he was elbowed. Ouch. Alright, maybe I did take my time. I can't help it. After a long tiring day the feel of the warm water is just too good. The blonde smirked. Hey, maybe next time you should come with me so I can show you. And you wouldn't get worried either. He joked suggestively as he lightly nuzzled her neck. Pervert. So what are you reading? Fu showed him the cover briefly, before she went back to reading. History of Konoha. Boring. I would always fall asleep during those classes in the academy. That's actually a surprising thing to hear. Fu looked at him for a moment. How come? Well, Konoha's history is filled of battles of valiant and strong shinobi. I would imagine you of all people would love to hear stories of cool jutsu, epic struggles and heroic ninja. Fu waved her hands with an exaggerated tone in her voice. Ha ha, well, when you put it that way, it does sound interesting actually. Maybe the teachers at the academy should take some advice from you. Especially Iruka-sensei, his boring monotone would be able to put even the Kyuubi to sleep. The couple laughed as Fu put down the book and snuggled into Naruto's chest, embracing his waist with her arms. The blonde moved his hand and gently started stroking her hair. The two sat in a comfortable silence like that. Or at least, that's how it looked on the surface. Fu's mind was anything but calm. In the past couple of months since their relationship had started, her feelings for her boyfriend had not only grown, but also intensified. Despite her awful life in Taki, things had turned for the better ever since she met the blonde. She wondered what her life would have been like otherwise. Maybe a future similar to Gaara's, where her loneliness would only turn into a world of hate. The feeling of complete solitude was maddening. But then came Naruto with his goofy smile and perverted sensei, and they gave her a chance. A chance in gaining friendship, acceptance, relationships. And for the past few months, a chance in love. Now if she could only voice this. Naruto wasn't far off from similar thoughts. At this moment, Haku's words rang strongly in his mind. Of course, he had understood what the boy had meant in the past and had even experienced such strength when he was fighting against Gaara. But the strength of his feelings back then could not even compare to the ones he had right now, for the girl he was holding in his arms. So this was love. Now he realized why Haku gave his life away like that. Of course, Naruto had put himself on the line many times for the people he cared for in the past, but would he have been able to discard his life so easily? He fought and struggled in the past because he believed there was a chance for victory, but when he was thoroughly defeated, would he have jumped so readily in front of a killing blow for the one he loved? Now he knew. You know, they both started. Oh, sorry. No, you can. They looked at each other and laughed. Ladies first. Naruto winked. Fu let out a sigh and tried to calm down her racing heart, to no avail. She cuddled in his chest again, hoping that listening to his heartbeat would calm her as usual. Surprisingly, she found out his was pacing fast as well. Taking in a deep breath, she began. Sometimes, I think I'm dreaming. Fu didn't look up to see his surprised expression. From time to time I keep remembering my time in Taki and my current life seems so much like a dream. I have a new village that accepts me, people I can call friends, a sensei that has taught me so much and a wonderful boyfriend, whom I have the opportunity to live with. 3 years ago I would fantasize for such things and if I was told that I would get them, I would laugh in your face. The truth is I had lost hope. I had started to think and believe that I was a demon destined to die alone. That someone like me didn't deserve acceptance or companionship. Every night I would cry and question the gods, what did I do to deserve such a life? I asked and begged that I would find happiness, but deep down I had relented. Fu felt Naruto squeeze her tightly, which actually made the tears from the horrible memories go away. She couldn't help but smile. And then I met you and got to spend the happiest 2 years of my life. Now, I find myself begging and hoping these moments never stop. Even though I've had a hard life, do I deserve so much happiness? I can't help but think sometimes that there will be a price for all this joy, that I will have to pay something for you. I am afraid that all this will disappear. Fu stood up a bit and faced Naruto, placing a hand on his cheek. I will pay it though. Whatever the price is, whatever the hardships, I will do it. Because you will be with me and your promise and presence has given me strength for the past months. I will fight for my happiness, for my life with you, because I love you, Naruto. Fu. To say the blonde was shocked would be the understatement of the century. But his surprise was mixed in with tremendous joy. After all, he had been about to say the same thing and to find out she felt the same way. As if pushed by an invisible force, Naruto leaned in and captured Fu's mouth in a fierce kiss. He pressed her body to his, aching for the closeness, and licked her lips with his tongue, asking, begging for hers. Fu let out a small moan and greeted him in her mouth, wrapping and swirling her tongue around his. She felt one of his hands entangled in her hair, while the other was slowly going down her back, sending shivers through her spine. Not wanting him to have the upper hand, she pressed and ground her body against his, pushing him into the couch. The kiss intensified and Fu felt his arm reaching her buttocks and squeezing her left cheek. Letting out another moan, she broke away as they both gasped for air. They looked into each other's eyes and both saw the intense storm of emotions and desires. You know, Naruto began, I can't believe how much in tune we are. Fu's gaze warped into a questioning one as the blonde continued, I was just about to tell you the same thing. He cupped her cheek and stroked it gently, I love you, Fu. He pulled her down and the two engaged into another heated kiss. Naruto's arms kept massaging and going over Fu's body, with an occasional squeeze in all the right places, prompting a moan from the mint-haired girl, while her hands were gently stroking the blonde's chest and abs. They could feel their bodies heating up, desiring more and more from each other, until Fu reluctantly broke the kiss. It's getting late, we should go to sleep. Tomorrow is our first day as Jonin, we wouldn't want to be late. Disappointment was evident in her voice. Maybe she should have gone to look for the blonde in the bath after all. Said blonde didn't plan on relenting without a fight though. Oh, come on, Kakashi-sensei is probably going to be late anyway. Do you really want to be late on your first day? You might get demoted to genin, you know. I wouldn't mind that, as long as I'm placed in your squad. You would make me do whatever you want then. Naruto grinned evilly, giving Fu's. The mint-haired girl leaned in. I think I like that idea. She kissed him briefly, before standing up. Come on, let's go to bed. Naruto groaned as he stood up. If Kakashi-sensei is late tomorrow, I'm going to castrate him. Fu grinned wickedly, oh, and all help. We will even burn his collection in front of him while we're at it. Kakashi turned a page of the new edition of his beloved book, Ika Ika Tactics, when he felt an eerie feeling settle in his gut. He couldn't help but feel a bit scared for his babies. Something was telling him horrible things would befall them if he was late for tomorrow's team meeting. Obito would have to forgive him, he wouldn't stay for too long in front of the memorial stone tomorrow. He was sure his old friend would understand. As the lights into the bedroom went off and the couple went to sleep, A lone figure outside the window kept scribbling furiously in a notebook. Jiraiya's eyes had turned into a pair of Ryo as he muttered to himself, brilliant. Gold. No. This is better. This is diamonds. Of course, he would need to spice up the ending a bit. He couldn't believe they didn't do it after something like that. It doesn't matter though, those scenes he was already good at. With the tremendous success that was his most recent book, Jiraiya had almost kicked himself, when he realized he should have made the 2 Jinchuriki date sooner. Oh, the profits he would have made then. Still, from what he had, accidentally, observed tonight, the perverted sage was certain the sequel would be an even greater hit. Was another beautiful day as Naruto and Fu walked through the streets of Konoha together, holding each other's hand. They had decided to eat at the Ichiraku ramen bar again for a date. There was a gentle breeze going through the village as it basked in the warmth of the sunlight. Naruto decided to use this opportunity to show Fu around the village some more. She still didn't really know her way around her new home. Before they left, Naruto read the scrolls his father left him. The Uzumaki seals were far more complex than anything he knew, and the Hiraishin was just as difficult. Fortunately, if he focused on them and completing the Rasengan with his shadow clones, he was sure it wouldn't take too long, relatively anyway. Fu was also working on completing the Rasengan and Naruto wanted to share the Uzumaki sealing styles with her. She was also working on a technique that required mastery of lightning manipulation, the complete version of her technique for flowing lightning chakra through her own body. She had thought of this way back when Jiraiya first explained the element to her and told her that some lightning users augment themselves by channeling it through their bodies, and at first, she thought she would be the first to succeed once she got this jutsu down, but later found out someone else had already invented the technique and there was still one living user. Though slightly annoyed by the revelation she wouldn't be the first to create this technique, it didn't stop her from working on it. While they walked, they passed a clothing store, which Fu went in. Naruto was relieved when they left. He had feared she was going to take him shopping, but luckily for him she had simply wanted to buy one thing, a gray overcoat, similar to the one worn by Anko Mitarashi. The additional pockets would be useful and the coat covered her arms and back so her opponents wouldn't see her insects preparing to attack. She had since removed her armlets and now wore her forehead protector around her neck like Hinata. As they walked towards the ramen bar, they ran into Shikamaru and Tamari. Hey, Naruto, Fu. Shikamaru greeted the pair. Hey Shikamaru, Naruto said and Fu waved with a smile. Naruto, that runt? Tamari asked herself as she saw the other blonde. That's right, Shikamaru told me he was promoted. Hard to believe he's the same brat from 3 years ago, though he is the one who beat Gaara. Where are you headed? Shikamaru said. I'm showing Fu around town and taking her to Ichiraku's on a date. Oh, hey, you're Tamari, right? I hear you made Jonin. Congrats, how are your brothers? Huh, oh, they're fine. Gaara's swamped with paperwork, like most cages are, but he handles it well. Hi, I'm Fu, pleased to meet you. Fu said. Hey, I don't remember seeing you before. Tamari replied. The girl seemed to be about their age, so she probably should have been in the exams 3 years ago and she had spent some time in the village. She had a very good memory and had never seen the green-haired girl. Well, I was transferred to Konoha from Taki and only arrived yesterday. Fu said. Transferred? Why would they do that? I'm the Jinchuriki of the Nanabi. They found out an organization made of S-class ninja called Akatsuki is hunting the Biju and they didn't want to be attacked. What? Tamari almost yelled. This was the first she heard of the Akatsuki and it made her worried for her little brother. Pervy Sage, I mean, Jiraiya of the Sanin, sent word to Suna before we got back, so your village should be prepared if they attack. Naruto said and Tamari calmed down and sighed. Alright, so, you're a Jinchuriki huh? If you know about Gaara, then you must know he's one too. I've seen what life's like for you guys, good luck in a new village. Tamari said. So, how's it been here? It's been good so far, no one's given me any problems yet. Fu replied. She didn't know if Tamari knew that Naruto held the Kyuubi and avoided mentioning it in case he didn't want her to know. So, are you on a date too? Naruto asked Shikamaru. That's not it. Shikamaru answered and Tamari scoffed. You're joking, why would I date such a slacker? The Chunin exams are coming up, and I'm just going back and forth between the sand and leaf for meetings. Tamari explained. And troublesome as it is, I've become an examiner, so I was told to see off the ambassador from the sand. The Chunin exam, that sure brings back memories. Naruto said with a faraway look. Yeah, but most are unpleasant. Shikamaru noted, remembering the invasion. Tell me about it, Naruto replied, grimacing now. He had been thinking of pleasant memories like beating Neji and receiving all that praise, until Shikamaru brought that up. Now that time he was eaten by a giant snake was flashing before his eyes, then his fight against Orochimaru, then his fight with Gaara, then finding out about the third's death. Anyway, we have to meet up with Kakashi-sensei later, so we're kinda in a hurry. Fu nodded. Alright, see you guys later. Drop by sometime, I want to see if you're any good at shogi. Shikamaru said as the groups waved to each other. Meanwhile, in Suna, standing on a balcony in the Cage office building, overlooking the entire village stood Gaara of the desert. After a few moments, a sand ninja approached from behind and kneeled on one knee. Lord Cage, the meeting is soon, the man said. Okay, Gaara replied, looking at the man out of the corner of his eyes. Minutes later, he sat a round table with the village's council. In the past few years, our village's power has stabilized, and has maintained good relations with all our allies. One of the council members said. There's a Chunin exam soon, I'm looking forward to seeing its results. Another said. Well, this is close to the Chunin exam, but there's been a bad rumor, a council member, Yura said. What is it? Baki asked. This information is from Jiraiya of the Sannin. Have you heard of an organization called the Akatsuki? Yura began. Everyone looked seriously and listened intently to what Yura had to say. They're an organization made up of S-class missing nin. Confirmed members include Kisame Hoshigaki of the Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist and Itachi Uchiha. Orochimaru of the Sannin, the one responsible for the death of our previous Cage, was also once a member. Back in Konoha, Kakashi and Jiraiya sat at a restaurant. Jiraiya had called Kakashi there to tell him about the information he gave to Suna. The sand has been warned and they are preparing. Anbu have been deployed to key points on the outskirts. Even so, I wonder if they could keep someone like me from forcibly entering the country, the super pervert said. At the Suna council meeting, everyone thought on what Yura said until another decided to speak up. Yes, I'd heard something of this myself. Baki said. So, they're finally making their move. We have this information from Master Jiraiya himself. He believes their targets are the Jinchuriki. Everyone murmured, discussing their thoughts on their motives and what they could do if they got their hands on them. I took the liberty of having the village secured and Anbu stationed at key points around the perimeter. Everyone nodded in agreement. Some voiced their opinions, praising him for taking the initiative and making a wise decision. Very well then, this meeting is adjourned. Baki said. As the council members left the meeting, Yura and another council member talked as they walked in the same direction. Well done, Yura. Have them tighten the security of the village. I'm glad I could advise the superiors I was working for the past 4 years and, since the source of the information was Master Jiraiya, I had to make a decision to move quickly. Yura said, his speech slowing as if in pain before he came to a stop and grabbed his head. Though they couldn't see it, a seal in his mind had just been released. The man he had been talking with looked to him with concern. What's wrong? It's nothing, just a lack of sleep. Yura said. You shouldn't push yourself so hard. Yura, meanwhile, had just remembered his true allegiance. I see, so that's what it was. Just barely within the visual range of the village, 2 figures walked through the desert sand. One was hunched over close to the ground while the other stood up straight. Both wore black cloaks emblazoned with red clouds and straw hats. So, the ones Orochimaru manipulated are up ahead, yeah. It seems for some reason he leaked our information and turned into a traitor, yeah. The one standing up, Deidara said. We don't have a choice, it seems. I don't know what he's like after using that jutsu either. The hunched figure, Sasori of the Red Sand said. Are you sure what you have in that bag is enough? The enemy possesses a Jinchuriki. It's fine, my jutsu are all artistic, just in case, I brought my masterpiece, number 18, yeah. He said, unzipping a pouch at his side that contained what seemed to be clay. We can't take any chances when our opponent is the one tail. Deidara said before chuckling as he placed his hand in the bag, a mouth on his palm opening and eating some of the clay. You call those explosions art? Art is something wonderful that lasts forever, a thing of eternal beauty. Sasori, my man, though I respect you and our crafts involve the same skilled labor, I have to tell you you're wrong. Art is the beauty of a single fleeting moment. At the entrance to the village, a narrow passageway in between the walls that protected the village, dozens of shinobi watched for signs of intruders when they spotted the two far-off figures. What's that? A masked guard asked. Red clouds on black cloaks, that's. He noticed a presence behind him and turned to see Yura, now in his shinobi gear. Captain Yura. Relax, it'll be over soon. He said reassuringly. As the two Akatsuki members finally reached the wall, they were greeted by the sight of Yura standing before the passageway, blood on his face and armor. Behind him were the fresh corpses of all the guards, the sand and walls drenched in blood. Well done, so you remember me? Sasori asked Yura, who kneeled before him. Yes, sir. Of course, Lord Sasori. All right, if you'd forgotten, I might have had to use my jutsu, yeah. Deidara said. Though I guess it wouldn't be much of a jutsu if he didn't. They're still loyal servants after regaining their memory. With that, the trio walked into the village, stopping just at the end of the passageway. The palm on Deidara's hand chewed the sand it had eaten and molded it into the form of a bird. Sasori, my man, you can watch from here, yeah. Deidara said before he tossed the small clay figure and made a hand sign. The bird disappeared in a cloud of smoke. When the smoke cleared, the bird was several times larger Deidara himself. We'll attack from above. With that, the blonde jumped onto the bird's back. How is it? What do you think of my artistic modeling? Just don't keep me waiting. Sasori said, ignoring the question. Deidara should know by now what he thought of his art of a single moment. Deidara smirked as he looked to the sky. The one-tailed Shukaku's Jinchuriki, Gaara of the desert, yeah. I wonder what kind of person he is. Deidara thought, confident in his artistry, before the bird took off. Flying over the village, he reached for his left eye and moved his hair out of the way, revealing a scope. Using the scope to analyze Suna's defenses, he found 3 guards watching the skies along the cage's office. There are 3 sky guards, yeah. Deidara said, observing them and taking in the sight of the village. This village's artistic design isn't too bad. That makes it worth destroying, yeah, he said as reached into the bag he carried and pulled out 3 small clay spiders. The spiders jumped out of his hand and he made a seal. In 3 bursts of smoke, the spiders grew several times their size. Now too large to fit in one's hand, and continued their descent. The spiders landed silently on the building. Sitting in his office, Gaara looked out the window, pondering the Akatsuki threat, when his head jerked to the sky. He had noticed a strange white bird unlike anything in the desert circling overhead. He immediately knew something was wrong. Unbeknownst to the guards, the lethal pieces of art moved silently towards them. 2 of them crawled up the backs of the nearest guard, while the third instead climbed up his arm. Wah! What the hell is this thing? The guard yelled, alarmed at the large spider-like construct which quickly latched onto his face. Thing. These guys have no appreciation for art. I guess stupid people can't comprehend. Deidara said as he watched with a grin. I'll have to teach you physically. He made a hand sign. That true art is a blast. The spiders, which had crawled onto the heads of the guards, detonated, killing the 3 instantly and reducing their heads to bloody gore. With the guards out of the way, Deidara's bird dived down to the building and the mad artist leapt down onto the building. Infiltration successful, Deidara said with a smirk before looking up. Standing before him, his cage robes replaced with his usual attire and his gourd of sand strapped to his back, was his target, Gaara of the desert. Deidara's smirk returned when he realized he found his target so quickly, but before the blonde can speak, his senses warn him of danger and he saw several tendrils of sand rapidly moving towards him out of the corner of his eye. Deidara jumped back onto his bird and with a wave of his hand, Gaara directs the sand, now in one large mass to chase the man. The mad artist flew through the village with the mass of sand hot on his trail. Flying through the streets at such speeds the civilians had to brace themselves from the resulting gusts of wind before he flew high into the air. Gaara gathered his sand before him and jumped onto it. It formed a platform that levitated into the air as he met the artist in the skies above Suna. Ho, the Jinchuriki's power is useful, isn't it? Deidara thought as Gaara rose into the air. How do you know about me? Yeah. There are no birds like that in this desert. Gaara stated with an emotionless look. Hey, seems like my sneaking in was a failure, yeah. But thanks to that, I don't need to search for you, yeah. Deidara said with a smirk. Gaara didn't respond as he raised both his hands calling an enormous wave of sand into the air from the surrounding desert. As expected, he has the geographical advantage in the desert, it's risky, yeah. The sand shaped itself into giant duplicates of the Shukaku's arms and claws, which chased Deidara across the skies. Deidara released several of his explosive clay birds in an attempt to destroy the pursuing limbs, the resulting blasts causing no damage to the arms. He used an unusual explosive, like a homing type, Gaara thought as he watched Deidara evade his attacks. Deidara reached into the pouches on his hips and created a pair of clay birds. Unlike the previous sculptures, these had 4 wings. The mad artist threw the birds, who grew in size once they left his hand, and they flew at Gaara at far greater speeds than any of the bomber's previous works of art. They quickly closed the distance between the two and Deidara made a hand sign once they were in range of the cage. Gaara vanished in the explosion and Deidara smirked. His smirk didn't falter when the cloud cleared and revealed that Gaara had encased himself in a shield of sand with a single eye of sand floating above it. So, that's the sand's ultimate defense. Deidara observed. To guard against that explosion is impressive, yeah. Suddenly, a shadow falls over Deidara who looks behind him to see the sand forming Gaara's desert prison around him. This is bad, yeah. Deidara thought as his bird flew to the rapidly closing opening of the prison. He was forced to jump off and detonate the bird to save himself from certain death, but just as he escaped, the specially prepared sand from Gaara's gourd latched onto and covered his left arm. Desert coffin. Closing his hand into a fist, Gaara causes the sand around Deidara's arm to implode, crushing Deidara's arm. Deidara looked to Gaara and saw the shell of sand now had a large hole in it as he fell. He then created another bird sculpture, this one shaped like an owl, to ride on and flew away from Gaara. You're good, yeah. Deidara complimented his target. I've only got a little clay left, just enough for one more attack, he thought to himself before analyzing his opponent. All I have left of my explosives is number 18 and this homing bird, yeah. Deidara thought as he pulled out his C3 explosive. Down below the two combatants, Baki and Kankuro, along with several sand ninja watched. Quickly figuring out the opponent was a member of Akatsuki, Baki ordered his subordinates to prepare for battle and to set up a barrier to protect the civilians. Kankuro. Baki said. What is it? Consider the scenario of the Shukaku taking over. That won't happen. Gaara won't hurt the people of this village. Kankuro replied as he remembered a conversation he had with his brother. Why he wanted to become Kazekage and how he could now see how important bonds were from Naruto Uzumaki and how he wished to one day be needed, not as a weapon, but as the Kazekage. As he thought this, almost as if to prove he was successful, several shinobi yelled out their encouragement to their leader, the one they had once feared and wished to die as Kankuro smiled. Back up in the sky, Deidara had let go of his C3 explosive, which grew to massive size before spreading its arms. That's it. I'm going to destroy this village, yeah. Because being stopped from below would be annoying and I'm tired of that emotionless look you're giving me. Deidara said. He's stronger than I thought. Sasori was right, I was unprepared. With that, the enormous clay sculpture descended towards the village. Gaara finally showed emotion, shock laced with fear, as the bomb made its way to his village. Baki orders the ninja to spread out and protect the civilians, but there's no time and Deidara detonates his C3 explosive in the air above Suna, the explosion large enough to consume most of the village. As the explosion began, a massive amount of sand raised up from the desert and formed a shield over the village, protecting it. This is, one ninja said in awe. Lord Kazuhage's sand. Wow. To be able to create a huge shield like that. Gaara, Kankuro said as he watched his younger brother protect their people with pride. In his shield of sand, Gaara was breathing heavily, even for a Jinchuriki, albeit the Jinchuriki of the weakest Biju, that took a lot out of him. Deidara looked to the redhead with a grin. You're in range, yeah. Gaara looked to the side and his eyes widened as he saw a small clay bird dangerously close to him. Gaara's shell of sand vanished in an explosion, but when the smoke cleared, the shell had reformed, the bit of sand he had sent to attack Deidara had returned and shielded him from the blast. That specially made sands fast, just as I expected. Deidara said before he made a hand sign. Inside the shield, Gaara was panting from exhaustion when his eyes widened. He saw clay in the sand and realized he had been tricked. Damn. The clay exploded, the shell of sand now working against the cage and containing the explosion inside with him. Deidara smiled evilly as he saw the shell of sand fall apart until Gaara, who was now on his last legs, was exposed. The cage struggled as he held out his hand, trying to use the last of his strength to move the giant shield of sand safely away from the village before it crushed it. Hey, typical cage, using the last of your strength to protect the village. It would have been easier just to let it drop on them, yeah. Gaara, Kankuro yelled out in shock as he watched his brother fall out of the sky before being caught by Deidara's bird. Not killing him was harder than I thought, but mission accomplished. Kankuro and Baki watched as their cage was taken, both realizing what they were after. Kankuro took off in the direction of the captors. Kankuro, if they were strong enough to beat Gaara, you won't be able to do anything by yourself. So you're just going to abandon him? Kankuro shouted in outrage as he stopped and looked back at his former sensei. It's not like that. Okay, just follow them, don't take action. Follow them to their base and wait for reinforcements. Alright, if I can. Kankuro yelled back, sure he wouldn't be able to wait. Baki knew it too and kicked the ground in frustration. Baki quickly made his way back to the cage's office and assumed command of Suna's forces. He ordered his subordinates to send word to Konoha and for a team to follow Kankuro as he walked through its halls. Deidara flew down, hovering just above ground alongside Sasori. You're late, I said not to keep me waiting. Sasori said gruffly. He was stronger than I thought, yeah. That's why I told you to be prepared. Minutes after their departure, Kankuro arrived and looked on in shock and horror at the corpses of the guards. Wah! What the? This is insane. He said, barely above a whisper. Before he clenched his teeth in anger and charged past the bodies. Outside the village, the Akatsuki members walked away with their prize, when they heard a voice telling them to wait. They turned to see Kankuro, standing there, ready to fight for his brother's safety. Return Gaara, Kankuro ordered the terrorists. Deidara, you go on ahead. Sasori said. Kankuro reached to his back and pulled out his 3 scrolls, summoning his puppets. Puppet jutsu? Sasori questioned. Right, I'll go on ahead, yeah. Deidara said. Like I'll let you go. Kankuro called out as he sent his attack puppet, the crow, out to attack, only to watch in shock as a mechanical tail extended from Sasori's cloak and wrapped around the puppet. I don't like waiting or making people wait, so I'll end this quickly. Sasori said, obviously not viewing the young puppeteer as a threat. In Konoha, Naruto and Fu had finished their date and had joined Sakura in waiting for the perpetually late Jonin. It was decided that the two would work under a Jonin for a few missions before leading any of their own. The male Jinchuriki sighed as they waited, leaning against a wall with his arm crossed beside his girlfriend who in turn was leaning on his shoulder. They'd only been standing there for 5 minutes, but already it was bringing back memories of standing around, waiting for their sensei until dozing off for Naruto and Sakura. I knew he was going to be late. The blonde grumbled. Some things never change. Really? Do you have so little faith in me, Naruto? A voice asked from above them. The 3 teens looked up to see the Sharingan wielder sitting in a crouch on the roof above them. The two original members of Team 7 looked positively shocked by the appearance of their sensei. Kakashi-sensei. Sakura stammered. But, you've never been less than 2 hours late. Naruto said in disbelief. Kakashi shrugged. Well, nothing got in my way this morning, so I managed to get here in relatively short order. And I had this odd sense of foreboding that compelled me to arrive on time. Fu grinned at the blonde special Jonin. Maybe his instincts warned him of what we were planning to do if he was late today. She said, causing Kakashi's eye to twitch. Naruto chuckled while Sakura looked quizzically at the two. Yeah, that must be it. The guy's so chronically late he almost got Sasuke disqualified from the Chunin exams. I don't think anything but a threat to his precious Ika would get him to go anywhere on time. He said in a joking manner. Fu giggled before turning her gaze to the silver-haired Jonin, who was currently thanking the gods he'd arrived relatively on time. Do you always have to act so detached about everything? It's the first time you'll be going on a mission with your students in years, shouldn't you be a little less apathetic? Sakura waved her hand at the question. Don't bother. He always acts this way. He never gets enthusiastic or excited over anything. Naruto smirked. Aside from the pervy sage's books. You know Kakashi-sensei, you might be able to find a girlfriend of your own if you didn't read that smut out in the open. Kakashi's visible eye squinted at their words. I'm losing my dignity, aren't I? He asked himself before the three Jonin of the group jerked their heads to the sky. Sakura followed their gaze and saw a falcon flying to the aviary. What is it? Sakura asked. A messenger bird, a fast one. Fu said. That means something big is happening. Naruto said seriously, which surprised Sakura a little. They're right, that kind of bird can cross countries in a matter of minutes. They would only send one like that if there was an emergency. Kakashi said. But we shouldn't worry about it unless we're sent to deal with it. It's counterproductive to our mission. Come on, let's get going. If we're much later, I'll have to hear about it from Lady Hokage later. It's your fault we're late, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto replied as they headed out. After the team made it to Tsunade's office, Iruka aiding her with handing out missions, they weren't too pleased with the mission Tsunade had selected for them, a simple B-rank bodyguard mission, but none would voice this to the temperamental woman. Are you serious? Or not? What's wrong, Naruto? Tsunade asked as she rested her head on the back of her hand, obviously uncaring of Naruto's objections. This seems kind of boring, just guarding a minor official. Yeah, you got a problem with that? Tsunade asked and Naruto sighed. Of course. If I have to do it I will, but isn't there something better? I was hoping for something memorable for my first mission with my new rank, but, you're the boss. Naruto said, obviously not happy. Well, at least you don't act like you run the place anymore. So, Tsunade was cut off when a woman barged into the room. Lady Hokage, urgent message from Suna. The cage's been taken by an organization called Akatsuki. The kunoichi yelled. The teen's eyes widened while the adults took it in stride. Fu took Naruto's hand in hers, both fearing for their fellow Jinchuriki. Okay, Team Kakashi, I'm giving you a new mission. You're to immediately travel to Suna, find out the situation and report. Afterwards, you're to follow their orders and back them up. Kankuro lay on the ground, utterly defeated. His puppets were in pieces around him and he could hardly move. He groaned in pain as he looked up towards his opponent. My body's going numb. Damn, he uses poison too, Kankuro thought. Your plan was good, but not good enough against me. Sasori said and Kankuro glared at the man, wondering how he read his moves so easily. That look tells me you're wondering how I read your preparations so easily. It's because the one who created those puppets, Crow, Black Ant and Salamander was me. Kankuro's eyes widened as he realized who he had been fighting. A youngster like you being my opponent, this was the most entertaining battle I've had in a long time. Wait, you're the genius puppet creator, Sasori of the Red Sand? Kankuro asked in disbelief and fear. For my name to be known by one so young is an honor. You left Suna over 20 years ago, why? Kankuro asked. What good is it for someone who is about to die to ask that? Sasori replied as he raised his puppet's tail in front of him, its poison dripping onto the desert sand. The tail speared forward but was deflected by the head of the black ant puppet. Kankuro used the last of his strength to send one of the crow's severed arms to Sasori's head, though it seemed to be an attempt to take him down with him. His real purpose was to secure a piece of Sasori's robe to track him, and luckily, he succeeded. Close. Sasori said. The poison's making its rounds. To be suffering like you are, if you want to live so badly, fine. But that poison will kill you in 3 days anyway. Sasori said as his tail retracted. Gaara. With that, Kankuro lost consciousness. Team Kakashi, Tsunade and Iruka stood at the gate. Kakashi and Sakura were wearing backpacks with everything they would need while Naruto and Fu had placed everything they could need in a scroll each. Time to go, Naruto said, now that they were all ready. Okay, Lady Tsunade, off we go. Sakura said, do your best. Iruka said encouragingly to his younger brother figure. Yeah, Naruto replied as the four began to set out. Just after they took the first few steps, Jiraiya appeared before them. Yo, going on a mission huh? Jiraiya asked. You got it, Naruto confirmed. Well, more importantly, something terrible has happened, the cage, Jiraiya began. I know, I'm sending them to take care of it. Tsunade replied, pointing to Team Kakashi. You're going to send them both to face Akatsuki? Jiraiya whispered to her and she nodded. He was confident in his students, but that didn't stop him from worrying. Naruto, Fu, Jiraiya called to them. Be careful of the Akatsuki. We know. Fu said. We'll be fine Ero-sensei, we are your students, after all. Come on, we need to get going. Naruto said. See ya. Kakashi waved and with that, the group was off. Baki stood at Kankuro's bedside with 2 other Suna ninja. They had just finished looking the puppeteer over, and the results were not good. The boy groaned in pain as they spoke about his condition. It's a new poison and we haven't found an antidote yet, one of the ninjas said grimly. He doesn't have much time, 3 days at the most. Gaara, and now Kankuro. Baki said as he lamented how he couldn't help his former students. I guess, all we can do is ask the retired siblings. The 4-leaf ninja made their way to Suna at full speed, jumping from tree to tree as they went to rescue Gaara. The 2 Jinchuriki both wished to go faster were only holding themselves back thanks to their training. Even though Fu didn't know Gaara, he was another who knew her pain and he was a friend of Naruto's, so she wanted to save him almost as much as he did. As they traveled, Naruto had his Wind Dragon's vigilance activated and sensed a chakra signature ahead. Someone's up ahead, I think it's Temari. Naruto alerted the others. He wasn't familiar with Temari's chakra signature but he thought she should be around here since she had no need to travel full speed. Half a minute later, they saw Temari walking down the road beneath them. Temari, Sakura called out, getting the blonde's attention. Oh, you guys, what's got you in such a hurry? Temari asked as they landed beside her. Gaara was captured by Akatsuki and we've been sent to help. Fu said quickly, alarming the sand ninja. What? Gaara, Temari yelled, her eyes wide. It'll take 3 days to reach Suna from here if we move at full speed, let's hurry. Kakashi said. Okay. With that, Temari joined their group and the 5 jumped back into the trees. As they traveled, Temari noticed both Naruto and Fu were almost seething. She understood why Fu felt this way. She was a Jinchuriki like her brother, but that Naruto shared her feelings on the situation was surprising to her. Damn it, can't we go faster? Naruto almost snarled. Naruto, calm down. I thought you had your emotions under control. Kakashi said calmly. I know but, Naruto said and everyone looked to him. That's right, you're the only one here who doesn't know, aren't you Temari? I'm the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, the 9-tailed demon fox. Naruto said angrily. Temari's eyes widened and Sakura looked to the ground sadly. They're after us because of the Biju, I can't stand that they look at us as monsters. And Gaara, he's suffered even more than me and Fu have, that's why I'll definitely save him. Naruto Uzumaki, thank you. Temari looked sadly, thinking of how her brother and these 2 she was traveling with had suffered because of their burdens and knowing it was because of her fellow blonde that Gaara had changed the way he had. Until now, she didn't know how he got through to him. I know we can't tire ourselves out, but I want to go faster because we're running out of time. Naruto said, and Temari's head jerked up to look at him. What do you mean? Temari asked, obviously afraid of the answer. Jiraiya told us, once the Akatsuki capture a Jinchuriki, they immediately travel to one of their bases and begin extracting the Biju. Fu said. Temari's eyes widened with horror. No, she said, barely above a whisper. Gaara. What is it? Why's that so bad? Sakura asked with trepidation. Fu's tone and Temari's reaction gave her a good idea of what the answer would be. If their Biju is removed, Fu began, moving her hand to the seal on the center of her chest. The Jinchuriki will die. Sakura gasped as her eyes widened and a tear formed in the corner of her eye. We don't know how hard it will be to locate them or how far from a base they are. For all we know, they may already have begun the extraction by the time we reach Suna. That's why we want to move as fast as we can. There's no time to waste. Temari felt extremely grateful to, and Sakura impressed by, the two Jinchuriki. That they were rushing to take on and group like Akatsuki, when they knew what would happen if they were captured, all for the sake of someone they hadn't even met that much in Naruto's case and at all in Fu's, even if it was partially because of what they had in common, showed what kind of people the two were. We don't have much time with how far we have to travel. Naruto said. We should go as fast as we can without tiring ourselves out. It's not like I was thinking of going full speed all the way to the Akatsuki. We can rest for a bit while we gather information in Suna, right? Well, I suppose we can afford to go a bit faster, and you're right, if they're going to begin extracting the Shukaku as soon as they can, we don't have much time. Kakashi said. In Suna, Kankuro was beginning to stir. Hearing the voice of his former sensei, he struggled to give him the vital information he had gained about the one he fought. It's him, the puppeteer barely managed to say. Kankuro? Baki asked, surprised. Baki knelt down and Kankuro whispered in his ear the identity of his opponent. Baki's visible eye widened in shock when he heard the name of one of his village's most famous shinobi. To the slight confusion of the two other ninja watching over Kankuro, Baki stood up without a word and walked out of the room, going straight to the residence of the pair of honored siblings, the oldest and most respected ninja in their village. Inside their residence, the two elders, a brother and sister, sat, fishing in an indoor pond. The sister wasn't moving or making a sound. Sister, are you dead? The brother, Ebizo, asked. The owl by now, he really should know better. Ebizo gasped as the sister, Chio, slumped forward, her fishing rod falling from her grasp, only for her to spring to life and catch the fishing rod a moment before it would have landed in the water. Got you, I was just playing dead. Chio said merrily before laughing. You shouldn't act so childish, sister. Ebizo said before the two became serious as they sensed Baki coming, and moments later he entered the room. Honored siblings, I beg you to assist us. Baki said respectfully. Old books are better left on a high shelf, bound together, there's nothing we can do now. Chio replied. An organization called Akatsuki has taken the Shukaku. If we let this lie, something terrible will happen. Baki said to the elders. This is your generation, do it yourselves. You have strong connections with every village. Those ties you have to villages not allied with our own, we can't gather the necessary information without them. Baki argued calmly. We no longer have any attachments to this world, we retired long ago. The only tie I have left to this world is a desire to see my grandson's face one more time. Chio said. That is favorable, because your grandson is a member of Akatsuki. Baki said, causing the siblings' eyes to widen slightly. Ebizo looked to his sister, who looked sadly into the water. Sasori. 3 medical ninja along with Baki, Ebizo and Chio stood beside Kankuro's bed. The old woman could still hardly believe her grandson had fallen so far. She had just finished looking over Kankuro, and as much as she hated to admit it, the poison was beyond her. Poison is my specialty, but even I don't know of this. Sasori's grown over the years. What should we do? Baki asked. Well, the only one who has more knowledge in neutralizing poisons than me is the slug princess of Konoha, Tsunade. During the Great War, she was able to embarrass me by figuring out my poisons and creating antidotes immediately. All you can do is call her for aid. You are allies with Konoha now, aren't you? But she's the Hokage now. She can't leave her village that easily, and even if she could, it would take 3 days to reach Suna from Konoha. By then it'll be too late. For now, we've sent a request to Konoha for a team of specialists, and it's taking all our strength to wait for them to arrive. Baki explained. HMPH, stop relying on other people. Chio said sternly. You're so dependent on your alliances with other countries, you've become careless with your own training. That's why you're in this situation. Becoming dependent, that's not what we intended. Baki replied. It can't be helped, it's because he lost his composure and chased them too far that he's like this. Ebizo said. Why are you depending on Konoha anyway? Because you didn't put advancement of your own village's power as the first priority. They are them, we are us. Friendly alliances are just a fabrication. All they will do is send useless underlings. The main point is, I can't stand that slug woman. Back in Konoha, Tsunade sneezed just as she was briefing Team Guy on their backup mission to Suna. At the main gate, Team Kakashi and Tamari finally arrive at Suna's main entrance. They're all catching their breaths as a guard ran towards them. You're here, and Tamari's with you. We've been waiting, please, this way. Right. Naruto replied. As they followed the guard to the hospital, they were informed Kankuro had been wounded and poisoned pursuing the Akatsuki, and they had no cure. They all got to Kankuro's room. Sakura and Tamari all entered the room while Naruto, Fu and Kakashi stood outside, looking into the room through the open doorway. Everyone looked up when they entered, and Chio saw Kakashi. The White Fang of Konoha. Chio seethed before jumping to attack Kakashi, only to be deflected by Naruto. The boy blocked 2 punches and a kick before Chio jumped back as everyone else stood in shock. Naruto noted that, despite her age, she fought with skill, speed and reflexes beyond most Jonin. Why are you attacking Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked angrily. The White Fang, my son's enemy, I'll get revenge for him today. Chio declared. Ah, no, I'm not. Kakashi began. There's no use arguing. Chio cut him off, preparing to attack again. Sister, look closely, Ebizo said, raising his arm in front of Chio to stop her. Though there is a resemblance, this man is not the White Fang. Huh? Chio asked before scrutinizing Kakashi. Got you, I was just pretending to be confused. Chio said, laughing, trying to play off her mistake while Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief. He knew Chio was someone even Tsunade respected, and fighting her wouldn't be good for him, the mission, or their alliance. After this was over, Sakura extracted the poison with her poison extraction technique. There, his life isn't in danger anymore, I've directly removed most of the poison. Sakura said, and Tamari slumped against a wall and breathed a sigh of relief that her little brother was okay. I still need to make an antidote for the poison left in his body, we can't relax yet. Please gather what I say. Chio looked on, deep in thought. It seemed that she may have been wrong. She was sure Konoha would send someone useless as a formality, but they had sent someone whose knowledge of medical skill was comparable to her rival. Naruto smiled as he saw how far his teammate had come. While Fu wanted to help, she had taken to the books on poison and medicine Jiraiya made them read. I'm surprised the Leaf would send someone like you remind me of that slug woman. Chio finally voiced her thoughts. Well, she is my master and she's the one who sent me. Sakura replied with a smile while Chio looked down when she heard this. Sister, time has passed us by it seems, Ebizo said. Okay, while Sakura takes care of that antidote, what do you know about the 2 who took Gaara? Naruto asked, having fully calmed down now, surprising Kakashi and Sakura. Both were once again reminded how he had grown. The old Naruto would have wanted to rush ahead without a plan. Meanwhile, at the gates of the Konohagakure, Tsunade stood before Team Guy. Guy, Neji and Tenten stood looking at their leader while Lee knelt, fixing his weights. You're going on the same mission as Team Kakashi. Your mission is to head for the sand and support them with Kakashi's team, is that understood? Right, Guy said enthusiastically. Let's get there in 1 day. No, sensei. Let us get there in half a day. Lee said with the same enthusiasm. What are they talking about? It takes 3 days to get to the Suna. Neji said, annoyed by his teammates' antics. Please stop talking such nonsense. Tenten said, exasperated. While Naruto and Kakashi remained in Kankuro's room with the Sand Ninja, Sakura and Fu went to prepare the medicine. Fu had taken to the books on poison and medicine that Jiraiya had made them read, and her skill impressed Sakura, especially considering the green-haired girl was self-taught. She knew more than most medical nin. That being said, she couldn't provide much more than an extra set of hands. The poison was too complex for her to try to come up with the antidote herself and not risk making a mistake. She also found the girl was interested in medical jutsu, partially to help her comrades, and she saw how useful it could be, and partially because she was a bit jealous of Naruto's regenerative abilities. Sakura wasn't sure how she felt about that, since, the way she saw it, if Naruto and Fu were strong enough to fight Kakashi and Asuma alone, her medical expertise was all she contributed to the team. Back in the hospital room, the ninja were discussing the Akatsuki. So Gaara's attacker was a blonde with his hair in a ponytail who used strange explosives. Naruto asked, is there anything else you can tell me about what he looked like or the village he came from? I think. Kankuro struggled as he got up. He was still weak from the poison. He was from Iwa. Kankuro, are you okay? Tamari said, still worried about her brother. Yeah, I'm feeling better now, the puppeteer replied. A blonde explosives expert S-class missing nin from Iwa, Deidara, Naruto said, his eyes narrowed. You know him? Kakashi asked. While we were traveling, Pervy Sage had me and Fu memorize every bingo book he could get his hands on. It was a good idea, looking back on it. I remember all the poor slobs who picked a fight with the old perv because they didn't recognize him. Excuse me, but, Pervy Sage? Tamari asked with a raised eyebrow. You'd know him as Jiraiya of the Sannin. I call him that because, well, it fits him. The guy spends most of his free time peeking on hot springs. It's a real disappointment, but he's as good as they say he is. Naruto said, much to the Suna nin's shock. They sent not only Tsunade's student, but 2 of Jiraiya's as well. Things really have changed, Chio thought, and Ebizo's thought mirrored her own. Anyway, I'll wait till Sakura gets back so we don't have to explain it twice. Fu will recognize the guy too. Naruto said. What came of the pursuit of the Akatsuki? Kakashi asked. Nothing. Kankuro went alone. We've completely lost them, Baki said, obviously upset over their failure to gather information. That's not true. Kankuro said. I managed to catch a bit of one of their clothing on Crow's hand. Making a success from a failure, you truly are ninja of the sand. Kakashi complimented the puppet user. Kankuro, are you certain the other attacker was Sasori of the red sand? Chio asked. Elder Chio and Elder Ebizo. Kankuro asked in shock. What about that, Kankuro? Ebizo asked, urging him to answer the question. Yeah, it was him, he told me so himself. Kankuro said, knowing it must be hard for Chio to hear. Soon after, Sakura and Fu returned, having made 5 antidotes, and Sakura gave one to Kankuro. Drink it up, Sakura said as she helped Kankuro drink. After he finished, she assured them he should be okay now. Okay, so, what do we know about these Akatsuki? Kakashi asked. One of them is known as Sasori of the Red Sand, my grandson, Chio began, surprising the Leaf Ninja. He's a genius puppeteer whose skill was so great that during the last Great War, he would dye the sands red with the blood of his enemies, which is what gave him his epithet. As you've seen, his skill with poison surpasses my own, and he applies his poisons to all his weapons. A single attack is lethal. He's also known as the creator and only user of human puppets. Human puppets? Kakashi asked. Puppets made from the bodies of still living people. They retain the chakra and abilities, even Kekkei Genkai, that the ninja had in life. Chio finished her explanation. Okay, what about Deidara, Naruto? Kakashi asked. Deidara's a member of Akatsuki. Should have guessed. Fu said. Deidara's a missing nin of Iwa with a bounty of 70 million on his head. He's the former student of the 3rd Tsuchikage, and he has the explosion-style Kekkei Genkai. He somehow molds the explosive chakra into his clay sculptures and turns them into moving bombs. Naruto said. I don't really know much about his abilities besides that. 70 million? Sakura asked, amazed. Is he really that strong? No. I mean, he's an S-class ninja but he's no Itachi Uchiha. The guy's insane. He thinks his explosions are works of art. He views every one of them as a major artistic achievement. The guy hired himself out to terrorist groups in several countries just so he could blow stuff up, and because of how he views his explosives, he didn't try too hard to hide his hand in them, whereas most missing nin, S-class or not, do everything in their power to stay below the radar. Fu explained. He's responsible for the destruction of a lot of civilian and government buildings in several countries and the deaths of several officials and countless innocents. The only bounty bigger than his is Orochimaru's. Naruto said. How powerful are his explosives? Kakashi asked. From what's said in the bingo book, they range from blow your limbs off to destroy half a great ninja village. Naruto deadpanned. If that's all you got, we need to hurry. The blonde said. He and Fu had everything they needed in easy-to-carry scrolls, so they were already prepared. As the group prepared to leave, Kankuro recalled what Gaara had told him, that Naruto knew the same pain he did and was responsible for his change in beliefs and personality. Naruto Uzumaki, Kankuro said, getting everyone's attention. Please save my brother. Leave it to me. Because I plan to be Hokage, I'll secure an advance favor from the cage. Naruto said with a confident smirk. Minutes later, the group stood outside the building. Kakashi, let me see that cloth for a moment. Fu said. Sure. I'm sure I don't need to tell you to be careful with it. Kakashi said as he handed the torn piece of the Akatsuki's robe to her. As she took it, 4 small beetles crawled out of her sleeve and covered the cloth. What are you doing? These beetles are one of 3 species of insects I have. They're kind of like the Baikochu that were used by the Aburame during the last war. Fu said. Now, she made hand signs. Summoning jutsu. In a poof of smoke, a chameleon appeared. Hey, good to see you, Fu. The chameleon said. Oh, you have the chameleon contract? Kakashi asked. Yeah, she told us about it after their promotions. Sakura said as she recalled what she told them about their time in the land of necks. Nice to see you too, Daisuke. Fu replied. Hey, how come you didn't summon us to Konoha? We still need to connect the portal to your village. I know, but as you can see something came up. The Akatsuki have taken the cage, the Jinchuriki of the Aikibi. They had told the summons about the Akatsuki. I see. What do you need me for? These insects have their scent. I want you to follow them and scout ahead. Between you and them, we should get a pretty good idea of their defenses. Fu said. While the beetles could communicate with her, they couldn't identify some traps in jutsu, but one of the chameleons could. Okay, I'll do my best. The chameleon said, and with that, the beetles flew off and the chameleon quickly trailed after them, seconds later activating its camouflage technique and vanishing. Fortunately, even if the Akatsuki had a sensor, the small chameleon had little chakra, a sensor would likely dismiss it. The chameleon and the beetles would be able to travel at full speed, since they wouldn't have to worry about fighting. Good idea, Fu, Kakashi said as he took the cloth back. 3 more beetles took to the air around Fu, ready to lead them after the attackers too. Now, let's get going. If you wait a little, we can have skilled ninja here too. Baki said. I'm going too. Tamari said adamantly. Tamari, you stay here and work on border defense. Chio said, looking down on them from the top of the building, surprising everyone present. For the Sans contribution, I'm more than enough. But Elder Chio, Tamari began. That would be too much for you. Baki said. Don't treat me like an old woman. Chio yelled as she jumped off the building and landed before them, surprising Sakura while Naruto, Fu and Kakashi just looked on. I've wanted to give some love to my grandson for a while now. Sasori and Deidara stood with the bird that was carrying Gaara before a mountain underneath a torii before a massive boulder with a seal that read, Forbidden, on it in the land of rivers. Seconds later, the boulder slid up and they walked into the mountain cave. Inside stood a silhouette with purple eyes with 4 concentric rings, the leader of Akatsuki. You're late, prepare it immediately. The leader said. The Jinchuriki was stronger than I thought, yeah. Deidara said as the bird placed Gaara on the ground and they disappeared in a cloud of smoke. The leader then made hand signs and summoned an enormous, demonic statue with 9 closed eyes, a bit in its mouth and its hands turned upward and bound by shackles. Right. The leader said before Sasori and Deidara jumped onto 2 of the statue's fingers while the silhouettes of the other members appeared on its other fingers, leaving only 2 vacant. Now,